Hello, everybody, and welcome to the
Higgledy Podcast.
Fuck, I forgot he said the at the beginning of it. um,
The hid.
the Higgledy
Excellent.
Piggledy Podcast. It's been a
How
while.
many times do we have to rebrand every episode?
Yeah.
Like,
New episode, new name.
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe that's the name of the series is the podcast that changes its name.
I mean, that would be
Yeah.
unique, I think.
Yeah,
Unless,
definitely be one.
unless someone else has already done it.
which
Someone's
probably has.
already done it.
Do you know what? I think I've said this before. I might have even said this on this podcast, but a while ago I did a Star Wars podcast with a friend called Ben, and I was so fucking pissed off when I discovered that someone else had already come up with the name. This is podcasting. I was like, you fucking, that was the most beautiful podcast name I'd ever come up with. And this fucking, I'm sure they're lovely. And I didn't listen to the podcast, I must admit, but I saw it and I went, fair, I won't touch your name. But yeah.
Yeah, I won't try and fight. It's all good.
I mean, I don't think they were huge, but they'd already had it. And, it's honor rules at that point.
You gotta respect the hustle.
Exactly.
I mean, we didn't use honor rules for our channel name.
This is true. But we did for the podcast, and then I think round about episode 3, episode 4 of our podcast, some massive podcasting channel put out an episode called the Higgledy Piggledy Podcast or something, but it wasn't
Really?
the podcast that was called it. It was just that episode that was called
the
it.
episode
And then, so when you search Higgledy Piggledy Podcast, it came up with them first with hundreds of thousands of views, and then us. And I was like, you fucking bastards.
Those bastards. I mean, hey, if that is a particular episode that people love, then who knows? Maybe they
we might get some.
see our
We might get
channel.
some trickle back. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it yet in the analytics, but maybe.
Yeah. No.
It's been a while. It's we took a break at the worst time, really. It was at the end of one show that we were talking about every week, and then the beginning of another show that we were looking forward to, and we just didn't do this for a month. I think we took a break over Christmas.
Yeah,
Then
I mean,
sickness
Christmas came up, sickness.
I
People
think it was literally Christmas, New Year's, because we recorded on a Monday and Christmas was a Saturday, so that was the 27th, followed by the 2nd, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we agreed that we were going to give it a rest over Christmas anyway, just so we didn't have to, all rush to be there, and we could just take a little break. But then afterwards, obviously, New Year's came around, and people just had stuff going on. People were busy still, people getting ill, and really, it's just been that since.
So, in conclusion, Higgledy Piggledy Podcast Season 2, let's go.
Yes, and you may notice that we have Calum with us today.
Yeah, we
instead of
fired
Tom
Tommy.
because
We fired him.
Tom died. He died, and we fired his corpse.
Yeah, I got promoted, guys. Congrats to me.
Yeah. Ironically, one of the big things we're going to talk about this week is the Book of Boba Fett. We've got a whole lot of stuff to talk about, but we're going to talk about the Book of Boba Fett. We last had Dog the Bounty Hunter on to talk about
God, here we go
the
again.
Book of Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett teaser trailer, and now he's back. He missed all of the Arcane talk. We kept on trying to get him to talk about Arcane, but it turns out Dog the Bounty Hunter not a massive League of Legends fan. So
Yeah, no, apparently not.
Yeah, this episode is probably going to be a little bit rapid fire in some parts because we do have a lot that we want to talk
A lot
about.
of catch up. A lot of catch up.
Most of it is just kind of like little teasers and trailers and stuff that don't really give much away, so we might just skip over some of that. But yeah, there's some good stuff that's been happening recently, and also some not so good stuff. One in particular that we will probably do a little bit more of. But
I don't actually know what that is in reference to. Just off. Oh, I can probably guess.
Yeah. So I guess looking at the list of the stuff that I wrote out.
Do we just want to finish off Hawkeye? I guess maybe just because
I mean, yeah, I guess we can do that first.
We're not going to talk about it a lot. It's over a month since it wrapped up, but Hawkeye season for spoiler. Fuck it, we're not even going to bother non-spoiler talk. Spoilers for Hawkeye, whole of season 1, including the finale. Cool. What do you guys think?
I really enjoyed it. I really liked the finale. It kind of had everything that I wanted. Um, like the first few episodes of Hawkeye, I think we said, in the first couple of podcasts that did it, it was like it was fine, but it wasn't something I was hooked on. As the series progressed, it definitely kept my attention, and there was like a couple of really good episodes, like especially with when you get to see his trick arrows and stuff, you get to see a lot more humor like sort of come out. Like you get to know Kate a little bit more, and like she grew on me as a character. And then towards the end, I was just like, okay, yeah, this was like overall like pretty good. Like final episode, as I said, had everything I wanted in it. And as we're doing spoilers just straight off the bat, I enjoyed seeing Kingpin again. That made me very excited for the future of the Punisher, perhaps, even though there's nothing been announced. So yeah, it was overall good.
Watch Kevin Feige come out and say that if that the Punisher in the MCU will be played by John Bernthal, and then the Punisher just never shows up because he's like, well, if he shows up in the MCU, John Bernthal, and then they just go, nah, fuck it.
Oh God, I would just. I don't know what I'd do. I wouldn't do anything. I'm a pacifist.
Which is weird considering you love the Punisher so much, but
well, I got to live vicariously through someone, and I guess that's the Punisher. So
I reckon he's coming. I reckon if anyone's coming over from the MCU other than Daredevil, it's him, right? Just yeah.
I mean,
critically acclaimed
I
performance, critically acclaimed actor, critically acclaimed character. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and also
anyone out of the Netflix universe ones that, out of all of them people, I would say it's definitely Daredevil and Punisher.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Alex doesn't love it, but I personally really liked Jessica Jones season 1 in particular. I think Jessica Jones got worse as it went on. Season 1 I thought was great. Season 2 was meh. Season 3 was not particularly great. But I do think Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones is a great character. So if you want to do that,
yeah, I agree.
I like Mike Coulter as Luke Cage, although I do think his seasons were a bit wobbly. Personally, I like him as that character. So I'd be happy with all of them coming over. I would even, I don't know why, but I'd even give a chance to Finn Jones as Danny Rand, Iron Fist, if they just actually make a fucking effort, and that goes for him as well with the choreography. But
I mean, like saying that, I genuinely think the characters like Iron Fist and Luke Cage would thrive more in the MCU with proper MCU writing,
because
like when I think Iron Fist,
lighthearted,
we've discussed
jokey
this before, lighthearted, jokey, or just chill, just chill, not a whiny bitch. He's like very, he's all about inner peace. He definitely did not have fucking inner peace in any of like what we saw him in, except maybe that one episode where he was like talking to Luke.
Yeah,
in, like
the one episode where he was on Luke Cage season 2.
Yeah,
that was Danny Rand.
Yeah, that was literally it. And I think bringing him back over to the MCU properly with some decent writing, and they just kind of say, don't worry about what you saw in his show over there. Just forget about it.
Or just have him having come to inner peace, like come to be the character we know from the comics. Because I'm fine with. I guess we have to talk about this. Fucking hell, we need to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. That's not on our list, but that happened.
Did we not talk about it? I feel like we did.
Oh no, we did.
We did.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Never mind.
That was the last one that we did.
Fair enough. Minor spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home. Nothing in detail, but Spider-Man. I would argue Spider-Man in the MCU has not been really the Spider-Man we've known from the comics. And again, that's a sweeping statement. All superheroes have been many things throughout the many decades as comic book characters, but I would say that to me, what I recognize as Spider-Man, he's been kind of getting there throughout the MCU, and then No Way Home really brought him into this. He feels just like the comic book character, and definitely moving forward, I'm really excited to see what they do with him. And I'm fine with that if you want to have a character slowly build to what we recognize them as traditionally. So if they wanted to do that with Iron Fist, where it's been a couple of years and now he's back and he's Zen, cool, fine, do that. Don't have to write off the last 2 seasons. Just do better.
I somewhat agree. However, I feel like there is a very distinct difference between the characters. Like with Spider-Man, we kind of knew that he was gonna have like at least a few movies to sort of reach the point where he was supposed to be, especially because he was so young. You know, like it is all new to him. He's been thrown into like a world with all these other superheroes. He immediately has to battle half of them,
Mm.
and then he goes into space. He has to do all this and that. Like he's got everything taken away from him. Like it it's quite like it fits the character to have that sort of lead up. Like you see him grow. With Iron Fist, however, and also like with Spider-Man, he still has remnants of the character that like definitely. Iron Fist, on the other hand, his main two like characteristics are that he has a glowing fist and he's a pretty chill dude. You take away one of those, he's not a character.
Hold on. And he only uses the glowing fist like 6 times in his entirety of the run of the Netflix shows he's in.
Exactly.
Didn't they like limit him or something?
It's like he doesn't know how to control it properly, and it makes him super tired.
Okay.
So I think he
Well,
uses it once in season 1 to break out of the prison or the asylum. Once at the end of season 1, probably a handful of times I can think of like 2 or 3 times in season 2, handful of times during Defenders. So like probably less than 10 would be my guess, without knowing for certain.
Okay.
But and the thing is, and it is built up that it's not like that's not the default for the Iron Fist, because we do see a fight sequence that's like in Vietnam with an older Iron Fist. I can't remember his name, but it's an Iron Fist who fought in Vietnam in the comics. And you see like this like filmed footage of it, and he's just going ham with dual Iron Fist like in permanent glow mode, and I kind of wish we'd gotten that character.
Yeah, and I
And he's in the
mean,
mask and everything.
like with Danny, like you don't have that lead up to see him become what he already is. Like all we get told is that he practically lived as a monk for his entire life,
and
he
Punch the
fought
Dragon we don't
fucking
get to see.
dragon. Yeah, and so from that you think, oh right, so he isn't really going to care about materialistic things. He hasn't really known anything outside of this monk life, so he's probably just going to be, pretty peaceful, whatever, and also pretty badass because he fought a dragon and he was technically like the chosen one.
He was the best,
immortal,
right?
Yeah, he became the immortal Iron Fist, which is a pretty big fucking deal. And then what we get to see of him is this really bitter, just materialistic guy who wants his business back, just hates everything, always complaining, and he barely uses his abilities whatsoever. And he's so unsure of everything. And I'm just like, well, you might as well have just like started the show off with him being young and showed us stuff, and then just like ended the show there, because anything after what he did in Kunlun is just stupid. It's just not worth it.
I think the cardinal sin of that show, in many ways, is the rule of filmmaking. I mean, any rule in filmmaking can be broken with intent, but the general rule of filmmaking is show, don't tell. And we are told that Danny Rand is an amazing martial artist. I'll just leave that one hanging because we don't get shown it. We're told that he punches a dragon. We see the dragon's eyes at one point. And we're told that he is one of the most powerful weapons in the entire world. Now, I do like some elements of the show. Like, I really liked the whole thing with the other family, who I can't remember the name of. Ward and his...
I think Ward and the other people.
Ward and his sister and his father. I really like that element of the show. I also don't dislike the first episode. I think had a decent element to it where I quite like the idea that fucking Danny Rand, who was an 8-year-old when he got like trapped in Kunlun, just walks into Rand headquarters in New York with no shoes on. It's just like, hey, I'm Danny Rand, I'm the CEO. And they're just like, no. And like he can't quite understand that. I quite like that idea, but they never really stuck the landing for me. Anyways, I realized that we were trying to talk about fucking Hawkeye, and we've talked
Hawkeye.
about Iron Fist for ages now.
I swear, like we've done this in a couple of episodes. Like it always just turns into Iron Fist bashing.
He deserves it.
He does.
I mean, yeah. So I quite liked the finale. I do have some reservations with the particular portrayal they had with Kingpin, but I don't think it comes down. Like some people said, it's the tone because Hawkeye's a bit more of a cheery, child-friendly-ish show. I'm not sure it really comes down to that, and more the fact that they had to shove, for want of a better term, the Kingpin stuff into one episode because they kind of wrote themselves into this corner where he was revealed at the very end of episode 5, I think, because it was 6 episodes, wasn't it? And then you have a full episode of him to do stuff. So how do you get him to fight one of the main heroes? You have him just show up and get beaten up, which is, I understand why people dislike that, because if you've watched Daredevil, that's completely not who Kingpin is in Daredevil. Like he would, the reason why Daredevil's able to get a shot at him each time is because it's like really carefully plotted and like
planned.
Yeah. And Kingpin doesn't let himself be open to those sorts of attacks. And then Hawkeye, he just like shows up on the street trying to kill someone, and then Kate fights him. But I think, as much as I dislike those elements, I don't think that ruins the character. I don't think that indicates anything particularly negative about his portrayal going forward. And I mean, if you've been on the internet, you know that he's not dead because people have told you about the thing in the comic book if you didn't already know. But Kingpin's not dead. Like, even without the comic book thing where he gets shot in the head, he was never going to die, because you wouldn't bring Vincent D'Onofrio back for 1.01 of an episode of a show just to kill him off. Like, you just wouldn't do that. Waste of money.
And I mean, yeah, I was going to say about, him getting shot in the head and everything, like, they clearly brought him back in hopes that they are going to use him further down the line. And again, that's why I didn't particularly have a problem with the way he was used, because it was like, okay, they wanted like sort of a couple of villains throughout the series, and then they do like the usual thing where then they present the actual big bad at the end.
Mephisto.
And now, well, yeah. And so they bring in Kingpin, and they present him as like, oh, he's the guy that's all behind it, and he's actually going to be the big bad and whatever. And again, I wouldn't have a problem with that, but and I don't. However, from a perspective of someone that maybe hasn't seen the Netflix shows, and I doubt there's many that hasn't seen.
You're saying that. I know at
surprised.
least 2 very big MCU fans, both of them who haven't seen Daredevil, and I've been going 3. Actually, funnily enough, they're all women. I'm not making some sort of like statement there, but it's like, I think it might be that they like watched that and went, "Oh, that doesn't look like the MCU" or something, which it isn't super like the MCU. But I don't know. But yeah, all 3 of them haven't watched it, and I've been like, watch fucking Daredevil. Start with Daredevil. Watch the other ones, but watch fucking Daredevil. Like, watch the first 15 minutes of Daredevil, and you'll be fucking hooked. It's like cocaine in your veins.
Have they seen Hawkeye and
Yes.
the Disney Plus shows? Okay. Well, then in that case, yeah, I take back that point.
And as far as I'm aware, all 3 of them have Netflix, so it's literally like they've got no excuse other than as I said, I assume they probably like watched the trailers and went, that looks a bit like DC. I don't like DC, and decided not to watch it.
I mean,
Okay.
but yeah, like from a certain perspective, if they haven't seen the Netflix shows, then they have no idea who Kingpin is, really, unless, they like the comics. And he's just this random guy that shows up, beats some ass, gets his ass beat, and then suddenly he's dead. Like, I feel like if they don't know the comics, they're just gonna be like, well, what was the point of having this guy here?
But I think,
like, it makes.
I think that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue with the MCU in general, and I kind of think Disney and Marvel don't care at this point, which is, I've said to my mum, for instance, like, oh, just let you know, because she's watched all Daredevil, because I coerced her into it. I was like,
My mum has too.
and she enjoyed it, to be fair. Like, I had to coerce her into it, but she actually enjoyed it. But I was like, oh, by the way, like, he showed up in Spider-Man, and Kingpin showed up in Hawkeye, and she was like, oh, so should I watch those? And I went, you mean, maybe, but to be able to watch Spider-Man No Way Home, you have to at least have seen Far From Home and Homecoming. But to be able to watch those, you will have had to have at least seen Civil War and Endgame and Infinity War. But to understand those, you'll have. And I went, okay, so you might have to start with Iron Man. And then I went, and she went, that's too much. And I went, fair. So I kind of think that like Marvel just kind of go, look, all of our content's on Disney Plus, except for some of the Spider-Man films. So either watch it and be fully informed, or don't. And we're not going to bother trying to inform you that much because that's effort. And I kind of respect that, to be fair. You know, if you want to be in the know, the stuff to be in the know is available to you. But yeah.
Yeah. I think that is kind of a problem. And you know, like I said with Kingpin, I feel like if I didn't know who he was and like, you know, that he was most likely going to come back, I feel like it would have lessened the show a little bit for me, because I would have just been like, oh, okay, so the big bad wasn't really even that big and bad.
Yeah.
On the other hand, though, have they given Kingpin a power up?
Yes,
because
100%.
The way he was like the way he was just chucking like her about and everything, and like ripping the door off.
They both leveled him up and leveled him down because he got beaten by a little girl. I mean, well, not a little girl, but like a 22-year-old or whatever, compared to Daredevil, who like really struggled to beat him up 3 times. It's just like,
I mean, to be fair,
prison, man, he jacked up. As simple as.
I was gonna say, because like if they have given him a power up, or if they hadn't, like, I'm fairly sure in that prison scene in Daredevil where he's like punching the Punisher in the face on the table, his fucking skull would have been smashed in. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
He definitely feels more comic booky than.
I know, like, I know Frank's hardcore, but shit, he wouldn't have survived that.
I mean, to be fair, I would have to rewatch the end fight in Daredevil season 3. You could argue he was pretty powered up in that fight compared to season 1, because he does snap Bullseye's spine, and admittedly it's against like a concrete pillar and everything, but he breaks the pillow when he does it and stuff as well. So like, I guess he was pretty strong in Daredevil season 3, and so Calum's comment on him jacking up in prison, maybe that's accurate, but like, I'm pretty sure he still punched Daredevil and Daredevil kept on coming. So I don't know, but
he's just been down in shit tons of whey protein.
not sponsored, but would happily be.
Yes, by whey protein.
The feast of Kingpin.
But one thing I'm really excited for, so in the comics, he gets shot in the head by Maya Lopez or Echo, and he is blinded by it, and then he eventually gets his sight back. Literally one of my favorite moments in all of Daredevil comics. I can't remember the exact context of it, but Daredevil goes to visit Kingpin in his penthouse because Daredevil needs information from Kingpin, and this is when Kingpin is blind. And like, he shows up in the middle of the night and freaks, like, Kingpin obviously like jumps out of his skin because suddenly Daredevil's talking to him in his room, and then Daredevil like asks him his questions, interrogates him and whatever, and then he just silently leaves, and it just like lingers. The panels linger on Wilson Fisk, and he's just like, Daredevil, are you there? And he's like terrified because he's completely blind and alone, and he's just like so fucking fragile. It's such a great moment. And like, obviously Daredevil's fucking relishing in it because he's a bastard.
I hope we get to see that, but I hope Kingpin asks Daredevil to feel his leg and says, "Tell me that doesn't feel like a dick."
What the fuck? What?
It's an Anchorman 2 reference.
Okay. I did not pick up on that at all.
He may also go into how
when I was a boy,
he says something about like raining down on the villagers of Pompeii with hot frothy ejaculate or something.
Yeah.
That's the MCU we deserve.
Daredevil, this morning I drank an entire bottle of tomato sauce thinking it was a bottle of wine. Why'd you drink the whole thing? Because I'm blind! I'm blind, goddammit! It's the only line I remember from Anchorman 2. But yeah, no, I think the whole show was pretty decent. Like, 7 out of 10. Finale was pretty fun. I do think Kingpin was probably the weakest part of it, but I'm still excited to see what they do with him. And I think people who are worried about the tone of Daredevil or Kingpin going forward in the MCU, who want that darker MCU, we'll get to it. Maybe we'll go into it right now. Who knows? But Moon Knight seems to be a good indication of where things might be going and them being willing to do something a little bit darker. Obviously, it's a trailer, so it could be wrong, but that looks more in what I want from Daredevil sort of tone.
I'm hoping if Moon Knight, and I do want to say a little bit more on Hawkeye, but
Yeah, it's fine.
In fact, we're going to go on to talk about Moon Knight a little bit anyway, so I'll just go back to Hawkeye and I'll just leave it until then. But,
I mean, that makes the chapters a bit difficult, man. You're making my job difficult, but stick to the fucking topic. No, fine, let's go.
Yeah, I really like Kate. Like, as I said, I wasn't all too sure on her in the beginning, just because I felt like it was just like all of the characters were really awkward, and I feel like it's very difficult to actually like do a lot, especially in scenes with Jeremy Renner, because he's just so wooden.
That's the man I've been telling you about. Kingpin.
Literally, like, what the fuck? The last, like, there was just that one episode. Like, I feel like they shot that episode all in one day, and he was just not giving a shit that whole day. But yeah, I really like Kate. I like she grew on me so much over the series. Like, I think she's gonna be so much better than Jeremy Renner. Honestly, I'm so glad that she's taking over as Hawkeye. I'm actually excited to see more of her, which I never thought about Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye.
Real quick, Calum, you're not a big fan of Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye, are you?
Hawkeye is my favorite.
Is he actually?
One of my favorite characters.
Is
Jeremy
he-
Renner not so much.
Is he
but Hawkeye
actually?
himself?
How is it that we
It's
replace
one of
Tommy
my
with
favorite
Callum and we still get a fucking Hawkeye fanboy? What the fuck is
know,
this? He literally has been
I've
telling us
told
how
you this
Hawkeye's his
before.
favorite MCU character, and we've just been like, what the fuck?
I've told you this before. He's one of my favorite. Moon Knight's up there though.
I mean, I'll give you that. Hawkeye,
Than...
comic book Hawkeye's pretty cool.
hell yeah,
MCU Hawkeye is another thing entirely.
Yeah, it's been a bit lackluster.
Tommy
definitely
literally said, like, one of the previous episodes, he was like, yeah, Hawkeye's one of my favorites. I mean, he's a dad, and that kind of endears me. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you can't use the fact you've got a son to excuse you liking shitty characters, like Ant-Man.
Like all the other characters that have fathers. It's like, I don't know. Okay, Tom. Oh, bless him. But yeah, no. I don't know. It was like a 50-50 split for me. There was things I liked, there was things I didn't. It was just one of the things. I didn't like Kate's mum. You know, it was, I don't know, it was just weird to me on some of her decisions. Like, I know she obviously worked for Kingpin, but does that justify calling an assassin on
a guy?
On your daughter's favorite Avenger? Like,
Well, I think that was probably the point, because I mean that was the whole big thing at the finish, right? It was like Kate calling the police on her mum because she was like, "Look, I know you think what you were doing was in my best interest, but at the end of the day, what you did was fucking batshit insane.
yeah,
You know, like you need to, you know, be held accountable for your actions." And I feel like that was. I'm glad that happened. I'm glad she was just like, "Oh, thank you so much for looking out for me."
I'm kind of agreeing with both of you because I do agree that she's completely batshit insane. But at the same time, I do think possibly one of the flaws of the show is that in their effort to try and make Jack look like a villain, which he is in the comic books, they don't give you enough indications that maybe her mum is a bit of a villain as well, and so it kind of comes out of left field, and you're like, "Ooh," sort of thing.
I would like to see a bit more justification in the sense of she finds out that they're actually looking into, you know, shit she's tied with.
Like, she's gonna lose everything if she doesn't do
exactly.
this.
So then it would have been a lot more like, oh well, I could kind of kill two birds with one stone here. You know, keep my daughter out of it, and also
which I guess is what she was doing, but like it's just it's not provided that path to make that connection. I don't think.
Yeah. So, but you know, it was. I don't. Yeah, like I say, it was a 50-50 split, and it's we'll just see what happens next.
But
I
Kate and Yelena, great
Yeah.
chemistry, great characters.
definitely. I am very excited to see more of Hawkeye and Black Widow.
Hmm.
Also, seeing as we just mentioned him, Jack. I fucking love Jack. I desperately want a spin-off of just Jack. Like,
I
just amazing.
would love it if Jack shows up as a villain down the line, and his villain origin story is that like he
Getting
got
fucked over.
he got into LARPing, and then he like lost hard in LARPing. Like something tragic happened to him in LARPing, which caused him to just go full psycho. Like one of his comrades betrayed him in a battle in LARP, and he was like, "I will make you rue the day," but then he ends up taking it to the entire actual world. It's just
Jesus Christ.
Or like he literally just loses a sword battle because obviously he's meant to be like really skilled with the sword.
Yeah.
He just loses a battle to just some like random larper, and he's like
some man
fucking
using a
whore.
staff
and then he
of
like
magic.
he goes after that person's family, and then he goes after that person's family, and then that person's family is a senator, and then he's going after the Senate, and then it just spirals.
Bless him.
He's also a little bit psychotic though. Like getting into a sword fight with actual criminals. I mean, I guess that's technically what all of the superheroes do. They're all,
Literally.
but like he's just a normal guy.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say he's definitely more of the eccentric type in the series. So
Yeah.
it does make sense
he's
that
a-
he'd be like, yeah, I'll sword fight some bad guys.
Maybe that's his villain origin story. So he keeps on trying to join the Avengers now that he's got a line in with Kate, and they keep on rejecting him, and he's just like,
You say that he's a normal guy, but is that literally not what Kate is?
fair,
Like,
but
Kate
like,
literally trained her life
but
just
at the
to be a vigilante.
very least, Kate got trained by Clint during the show. So like at the very least, her going forward as an Avenger or a superhero, she's got like that training from an already established superhero. But like, he's just a dude with a sword.
I just found it funny that they were
just like Clint.
Yeah, but Clint was a secret agent before he was a superhero. Like
yeah, he was a spy, Alex.
a spy with a bow gimmick. It's
I don't know.
you really got to question fucking Nick Fury going, yeah, we'll hire this guy. Yeah, he uses a bow. That's cool. Like, oh, doesn't use firearms. That's cool. That's fine.
Yeah, I once knew this woman that basically could fly in space without a helmet and shoot photon blasts out of her hands back in like the 80s.
But now I've got a guy who's
limited.
limited to exactly 20 shots.
Yeah, and
Like-
he's
Yeah, man, that sounds great. Oh, this man.
and like Maria Hill's like, what if someone gets up close to him and Nick's like, oh, he has a sword too.
Well, I mean, he could use the arrows without the bow.
Yeah. What if they snap? Oh no, they won't. We just have
I
to
mean,
trust in that.
he'll just use his fists.
Actually, that's another scene I want in this Jack spin-off is when he's trying to join the Avengers. He gets to speak to Nick Fury. Like he forces himself into a meeting with Nick Fury. Nick Fury's like, "You're not Avengers material." He's like, "You hired a fucking dude with a bow to be your secret agent." Like, but
No,
yeah.
I would love to see that though. I'd love to see a swordsman spin-off show where I don't want him to become a villain. He's just way too likable.
Yeah,
Do you know what?
There was one...
I would love it to be live action, but I'd also kind of love it to be animated in the style of Venture Bros. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that show,
Yeah, I
But-
could see that.
but
Yeah.
his swordsman like perfectly fits to the tone of that show.
I don't know. The series tried to push it so hard that he was the bad guy that I was like, well, he's not going to be, and I just kind of just started being like, yeah, I like Jack. He's pretty cool.
Well,
Like-
that's exactly why I don't think I can agree with the two of you on the fact that they didn't like put enough sort of into like signify that the mother was going to become the bad guy, because even from the beginning I was like, they've set this guy up to be the villain almost immediately. Like there's something iffy, and like I even said to myself, like, I think it would be so hilarious if the mum turned out to be the villain, and I hope she does. And then like over the series, like there was just little things, and I was like, holy shit, she actually is going to be the villain.
See, I didn't pick up on those little things, and I kind of stayed in the same boat as you until episode 5, which is kind of hilarious if she turns out to be the villain, though. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was all right.
Yeah,
Definitely
got my seal of approval.
definitely the Christmas family movie that everyone was looking for.
Sure.
Because that's what they pushed it as. So
Yep.
that's what it is.
According to Tom, if you're a father, you're just gonna love Clint Barton. You have no other way of looking at it.
Simple as
Also,
any.
guys, what was the big thing with the watch? She was a secret agent once, which apparently
Yeah,
I've seen people post on Facebook and whatever. Tony Stark was right because he predicted that Clint's wife was a secret agent when he first met her in Avengers 2.
I mean,
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, what is this? Your cover story? Is she a secret agent?" So,
I mean, I think it's a pretty fair guess.
yeah, it's just like people were actually expecting the watch to be a thing, and it's just really not, is it? It's just got the shield logo on the back of it. Oh no!
Well, everyone was saying that she's going to be that. Can't remember that agent now, but basically,
An agent who already showed up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a
Yeah.
maybe not canon, maybe canon TV show.
I mean, if they did, it'd be funny because I know a lot of people liked that show for some reason.
I really
I personally
fucking
don't
hope
like
they
it.
don't make that show canon.
I've literally never watched any episodes of it, but I've seen clips of Ghost Rider, and he was pretty poggers.
Ghost Rider was pretty cool. I only watched clips of Ghost Rider because by then I'd already given up on the show. But he was pretty cool. I still want them to bring back Johnny Blaze though.
Yeah, Nick Cage, let's go.
Okay, maybe not Nick Cage.
I mean, look, there have been so many rumors about old Marvel actors who might show up in Multiverse of Madness now that they've done the previous two
Christian
Spider-Man.
Bale's Daredevil, let's go.
Christian Bale's what?
Oh no,
Ben
fuck,
Affleck's.
whatever it was. That's the one.
I would
Sorry.
find it hilarious if they did do Ben Affleck's Daredevil just because he's recently
'cause
been
then-
like, I'm never doing Batman again. That was the worst experience of my life
'Cause then
doing
we can
Justice
get-
League.
We can get Thingy back as Foggy Nelson if we pog.
I really hope that if they did do Ben Affleck as Daredevil, which I hope they don't, I hope they leave that in a grave, a shallow grave somewhere. But if
Leave
they
that in
do
the
bring
vault.
if they do bring him back, I really hope he shows up to Evanescence's "Bring Me to Life," which is, as we all know, the song that Matt Murdock, renowned New York lawyer, listened to every morning while getting
Every
dressed to go to
morning
his lawyer
to get
firm.
dressed and ready to go.
The early 2000s.
Just thinking about Ghost Rider, actually, it would be pretty cool to have Danny Ketch as the MCU Ghost Rider, just because he's not been done live action.
To be honest with you, you're getting beyond my my knowledge of Ghost Riders.
Ghost Rider.
Okay, well, let's just move on then.
Okay.
Leave it as that. Cool.
Yeah.
Right, next topic then, I guess.
Should we go on to Moon Knight? Because you mentioned Moon Knight.
Yeah, Moon Knight.
Dropped a trailer.
I'm pretty excited. Yeah, trailer was pretty sick. I think the costume looks amazing, actually.
Yeah, some people have been dissing on the costume. I think it looks cool. I mean, it looks a little bit goofy in the sense of it's a kind of crazy comic book costume, but I think it works particularly for Moon Knight. Like,
Yeah,
I
the
could-
sense of how he actually has his powers and shit. Like,
yeah, like the hooded cowl thing could look silly if it was any other superhero. I get that, but with Moon Knight, nah, they're gonna land that, I reckon.
yeah, it's also a case of it being a series and it won't have as much money, so it might look a bit weird in certain stuff of like fight scenes or like any sort of high motion impact scenes. But
mean,
we'll see.
I think the costume's probably a practical costume, but I did notice, having gone through the trailer quite a bit, I did notice one of the sequences when it's like wrapping him up did look a little bit iffy. But again, as you said, it's a TV show budget, who cares? And I think overall it looks really good. People still confused by the accent that Oscar Isaac's doing, don't understand that is a British accent. People are like, what sort of accent is
a
that?
bit iffy.
It sounds fine to me. It sounds weird in the sense of I don't picture Oscar Isaac ever having that voice, but it's a British accent I've heard before. Just a little bit of a cringy one. But I will say the one minor criticism I have of the trailer is I think some of the comedy that was in the trailer didn't quite land for me. But yeah,
There was comedy in the trailer.
there's like there's the one of like the lady at what I assume is the British Museum getting his name wrong intentionally, and then him correcting her, and then her like clicking her tongue at him, and like it's clearly done in such a way that you're supposed to go, "Heh, funny." But I was just like, was that a joke? Like,
I didn't
she's
pick up
bullying
on
him.
that.
Okay, like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I that hasn't turned me off the show at all, because it's I don't expect it to be that funny of a show. To be fair, I mean, it can be, as many of the Moon Knight memes on the internet recently have shown. He can be a very funny character, but I don't expect it to be all that comedic. So
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Like, I don't know. They seem to be heavily harping on showing his, because with his what's it called? His
split
it's not sleep
personalities.
deprivation, but like the multiple
Insomnia.
personalities, but with the insomnia and him, like obviously every time he's sleeping, he's like switching personalities or something. And like the trailer just shows his part of it when he's awake and when he's like conscious and lucid through it. So it'll be interesting to see them sort of mixing that up,
Yeah, I think,
and like the interactions between them.
I think the thing I'm most excited for, particularly for people who haven't really got any idea who Moon Knight is that moment in the trailer when he like answers this like ancient flip phone, and someone's like, "Oh my god, you're alive," and then he's like, "Why'd you just call me Mark or whatever?" It's like that sort of like. I really hope they lean a little bit into that more thriller vibe that I think the trailer was sort of going for, and obviously like that there's room for some horror elements, like the creepy thing approaching him in the elevator, which I assume is supposed to be I can't remember the name of the god that he is somewhat possessed by, but I assume
Khonshu?
Yeah, Khonshu, that's it. I assume that's supposed to be Khonshu in that sequence, but I don't know.
It's either that or he's just getting visions and shit from just his insomnia.
Yo, what if he becomes the second MCU character to punch a granny in the face?
Was the first one Shang-Chi?
No, Captain
No,
Marvel.
it was Captain
Oh,
Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Pussy.
Oh.
It was Brie Larson.
Although
just doing it
actually,
unconsciously. She was
technically, the
involved.
first MCU hero to punch an old lady in the face was Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, because he had to beat an old lady with a stick to get these cameras.
I think it would have
I'm
been
gonna
funnier
throw
if
some
it was
money.
Shang-Chi that just randomly punched an old lady in the face.
When did you think Shang-Chi did punch an old lady in the face?
Because, like, didn't Brie Larson punch the old lady on a bus?
Yes.
Yeah, that was
and
improv. She just did it.
And Shang-Chi had a bus scene, so I just switched them in my head.
Oh, right, okay. Brie Larson just didn't like the way she looked and punched her.
Yeah, Brie Larson just walked
in.
onto set one day and punched an old lady on the bus, and they just started rolling with it.
Yeah. It's kind of fucked up, you ask me, but hey ho.
Did you guys hear that Willem Dafoe didn't actually get cast as Green Goblin in No Way Home?
Yeah,
he just showed up on set and decided he was going
showed
to
up
play
on
Green
set.
Goblin again and started beating the shit out of Tom Holland.
Yeah.
John Watts was just like, "This is fucking gold, go for it."
Yeah, just like when in the original Spider-Man ones where he just came in and beat up the fucking director and said, "I'm playing a part now."
Yeah.
He actually stabbed Tobey Maguire at the end as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
by the way, I
Stash, yeah.
finally found out. I did a little bit of scouring. I said during No Way Home that in our talks of No Way Home, I was like, I don't remember Tobey Maguire ever getting stabbed in his films, but he talks about it. He gets stabbed by Harry in the fight in Spider-Man 3.
Oh.
It's a pretty minor moment, but yeah, he gets stabbed by Harry in that fight scene.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think Moon Knight looks cool. I've made this joke on Twitter. I made this joke on Discord. But if I had two
So put it
pennies
here,
for every
let's go.
single time that Oscar Isaac played an Egyptian-related Marvel character, I'd have 2 pennies, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice.
Yep,
For
there
those
we
of
go.
you not aware, he played Apocalypse in X-Men Apocalypse.
The best
There
of
we
the
go.
X-Men films.
It was bad. It was very bad.
But it wasn't the
Um,
worst of the X-Men films either.
Let's
I mean,
not get
I
into
can't-
this
Actually,
topic.
hold on. Let's do the maths here.
okay.
You've got X-Men 1, X-Men 2,
we
X-Men
go.
3, X-Men First Class, X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men First Class, Days of Future Past, The Wolverine,
Yeah.
Apocalypse, Logan, and Dark
Dark
Phoenix. 10
Phoenix.
10 films. So X-Men 1 pretty solid. X-Men 2 fucking great. First Class fucking great. Days of Future Past pretty good. Logan pretty good. Well, Logan fucking amazing. And I'm kind of a sucker for the Wolverine. I know a lot of people don't like the Wolverine, but I'm alright with it. So that's 6 out of 10 that I would say are, better than average. So therefore Apocalypse is probably pretty close to being the 7th one. It's somewhere in there.
Which one
I
was the
actually
Wolverine?
like the
Is that the one where they made Deadpool shoot lasers out of his eyes, or
That's
when
when
Wolverine
Origins
found
Wolverine.
out? Oh, okay. So is it the one where he finds out he needs to use 2 hands to use the laser sword?
Yes.
Okay, right, cool.
Yes, it is that one. Yeah, the Wolverine's not a great movie, but it's not an awful movie either. I would say it's like a solid 7 out of 10.
It was okay until I saw the end credit scene and they teased the outfit, and then they just didn't give it to us, and I was really pissed.
Well, that's fucking. I'm pretty sure it was Bryan Singer who did Days of Future Past. That's fucking Bryan Singer, fucking us over once again. But also, Bryan Singer's a piece of shit anyway. So
maybe if he used 2 hands to write the script, it'd be good.
I mean, like a few
Or something, I don't know.
a few months ago, I went back and I rewatched the first 3 X-Men films, and I still don't think X-Men 3 is a good film, but it was better than I remembered.
it's got redeeming factors to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got one of my favorite scenes out of every comic book movie ever.
Which is?
Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Yes.
Fantastic. Vinnie Jones.
Yeah, it was a pretty good cast, not gonna lie. Pretty good cast.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. X3 is, I think, because of films like Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix and X-Men Origins Wolverine, has aged better than others. Let's just put it that way. Also, genuinely, the opening scene with Archangel is fucking great to X-Men 3. When he's like pulling out his wings in in the bathroom, like fucking horrifying. But like that shit, that when X-Men did that sort of shit, it's fucking great. Like obviously the opening scene to the original X-Men with Eric in Auschwitz is fucking heartbreaking. And yeah, it's when they go deep and dark without going like DC deep and dark, they really tap into
like
something special there.
True to life, real world stuff, not like
particularly because
dark,
because X-Men as a franchise, as an IP, is so good for exploring themes of prejudice and discrimination and such. Like, so when those films did that, and they did that well, fucking great. But obviously they also did other stuff like X-Men 3 or Deadpool with no mouth.
He must scream, Pete.
or just typical 6-foot Colossus with just nothing behind him. That was the most heartbreaking part for me in those films. It just wasn't Colossus.
But I think to be fair, actually, in the X-Men list, I left out both Deadpool films. Therefore, actually, Apocalypse is firmly in the bottom half. But
I can't comment on Dark Phoenix because I just straight up refuse to watch it.
Same. I've not watched. I've heard awful things about Dark Phoenix, but I refuse to watch it because Logan is the perfect end to the Fox X-Men films. So that's where I finished off that franchise.
Like we've seen Phoenix.
We
saw it in X3. It was bad then. I don't intend to go back and watch it again. So
there's that element to it, and then there's also the other element, which I've heard from other people, which is that I really like Michael Fassbender and James. I was about to call him James Acaster, but that's not his name. James Acaster would be great as Charles Xavier, but he doesn't play Charles Xavier.
Maybe not, to be honest, but okay, you can have your opinion.
I'm just imagining like a bold James Acaster in a wheelchair, in a bush, wearing a dress.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we're not being weird. Go watch James A. Caster on Would I Lie to You, which I knew that story was true as soon as he started telling it, just because he described the outside of Basingstoke train station perfectly. And I went, he's 100% got that seared into his memory, so he either lives in Basingstoke or he knows exactly. Anyways, I went to college in Basingstoke, so I know that train station very well. But yeah, no, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, I think, are great as Xavier and Magneto. But my issue that started to occur in First Class, he goes for a really cool story arc of turning from Eric into Magneto. And then in Days of Future Past, he turns from Eric into Magneto. And then in Apocalypse, he turns from Eric into Magneto. And from what I heard in Dark Phoenix, he turns from Eric into Magneto. And they just repeat the exact same story arc each time. It's just like, give my boy Michael some more shit to do with that script, boy. Please.
Eric into Magneto. Yeah. Yep.
They literally, apparently, Dark Phoenix also does it. It's just always the story of him falling from grace into becoming a supervillain. It's just like, if he was a supervillain at the end of the last film, maybe just leave him as a supervillain now.
Yeah.
Like,
I literally only watched it for the Magneto stuff because I wasn't really invested in all the other new stuff. I was like, I just wanted to see what's going on, and yeah, it's literally it.
Yeah.
He goes into.
Does he lose
hiding.
another family?
Yeah, he does. Funnily enough, he what literally happens is he goes into hiding almost, changes his name, gets a new identity, and I think it's just off Germany somewhere, maybe even in Poland. But yeah, he has his family and everything like this. And he works in like an ironworks.
No, that's Apocalypse.
Is that Apocalypse?
Yeah.
Apocalypse, yeah.
Oh, okay. Then what am I thinking of? Oh wait, no. What happens in Dark Phoenix is he just straight up has his commune of mutants. Like he bought his own land and like they just have this commune. I think Jean then hides out there because she has this outburst. And that's when she kills woman. She has her outburst and kills Mystique.
Yeah.
And then she goes there to hide because that's like the only place she can go to. And then as the government comes to, get her, or like the X-Men do, it's revealed to him that she killed Mystique, and then he gets really mad, and that's how he becomes.
So kind of losing a family again, because that was like his girlfriend.
But yeah, no, he was still kind of Magneto in it because but he wasn't this like hell bent, going to destroy everything. It was more leave me and my mutants alone because we now live in this place and it's our place. So just leave us alone. To I'm now going to murder the shit out of Jean Grey.
This is probably going to be a better thing to talk about in a future podcast just because of how much we've got to get through today. But I'd love to talk to you guys about who you'd want to play different X-Men in the MCU if they show up. Because personally, I hope they leave Wolverine alone for a bit, potentially forever in the MCU, just because Hugh Jackman was perfect and had a perfect end. And we've seen Wolverine be the protagonist a lot. So, like, I'm kind of would be fine if they did X-Men without ever bringing Wolverine in or didn't bring him in for several films. But, like, would you want Fassbender and McAvoy to reprise their roles, but as new versions of those characters or the same versions of those characters? Because you could do Stewart and McKellen, but they're getting on in age. They won't be able to do it for that long, although they both are brilliant in that role. But, they're not as
I would like to see
young
it
as they used to be.
With definitely with different writing with Fassbender and McAvoy, definitely, because they do play it well. And
they've got that exact same kind of chaotic gay energy that McKellen and Stewart have. I mean, you watch them on the Graham Norton show. They are exactly the same sort of chemistry that Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen have on the Graham Norton show. It's great.
I mean, I think if they are, like, regardless of what I want, and I'm not even sure what I want, I think from what we've seen so far about the X-Men potentially coming over to the MCU, I mean, it's been confirmed that Deadpool's coming to the MCU. And in that universe, we've seen, the James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender cast of X-Men, you know? So he's clearly in that world.
But he's also
And-
still fourth wall breaking because he does ask in the first Deadpool whether he's going to meet whether he's going to meet McAvoy or Stewart.
Yeah, I know he says that, but we physically see the McAvoy group. So and also, you know, we've seen Evan Peters, is that his name?
Yeah. Play Ralph
reprise
Boner.
his role as
Ralph Boner.
Ralph Boner.
Mhm.
So I think it's pretty set that if they are gonna properly bring the X-Men in, it's most likely going to be that cast. I don't think they're going to use a lot of the X-Men they've already used, but I think it will be that universe's X-Men.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see whether they do go for one of the lesser known, because the main X-Men group is the group we've seen a lot in the films already. So it'll be interesting to see whether they go for a different team of X-Men that we don't see in mainstream media as often. Personally, as much as I think it would be cool to see a lot of the other more rare X-Men take center stage, I just want them to do a film where they don't do Cyclops dirty. I love Cyclops, and I feel like he's been done dirty in every single film that he's been in. He's just been a beta boy cuck in every single film he's been in, and it's just
He's just a bastard. Like every portrayal I've seen of Scott Summers, he's just a pure bastard. He's just such an unlikable asshole.
I don't think he's as unlikable in the McAvoy Fassbender era, but he still just does nothing. He just does. Honestly, his best portrayal might be in X-Men Origins Wolverine when he nearly blows up his own school from his getting his powers, just because he's barely in it, but what he does is badass.
But I mean, it depends, because if we're it's so difficult to talk about X-Men as a whole, just because they've fucked around with the timelines and
and they
everything
refucked
so
it
much
with because they
Yeah.
kind of unfucked it with Days of Future Past, and they slightly refucked it with Apocalypse. Then they full sent fucked it with Dark Phoenix. So
Yeah, who fucking knows what's going on anymore? I mean, they could quite easily, at this point, just bring in that cast of X-Men characters and just completely change the whole timeline for them again, and no one would bat an eyelid, because no one has a fucking idea what's going on in their universe anyway.
There's a lot of strings.
oh my god, brilliant idea! Scrap all of the X-Men cast that we are used to. Just bring in the New Mutants, everyone's favorite film from whatever year that eventually came out in.
Oh, I fucking forgot about that. I can't believe that even went ahead, honestly. I
mean,
think...
at the point that Disney had bought Fox, it was like, we might as well release it because it's been made and promoted already. So we'd be stupid not to, but they didn't plan for it to make any money. It's just
I genuinely don't know anyone that has seen it.
I haven't. I just know it came out.
Did.
Bloody hell.
Quick, give us a review of New Mutants.
If you change the name, then I don't think you would know it's an X-Men film whatsoever, or mutant
Good start.
film based in the X-Men universe. Yeah, it's yeah.
It sucks as well because the original premise that they announced it with, I actually quite like that concept. From what I understand, they defanged it so much, but the original concept was a horror movie about young mutants discovering their powers in an institution. And you're like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And then apparently it's not a horror film anymore.
Nope.
Cool.
Yeah.
There was one reason that I was considering watching it, and that's because I knew that magic was in it. And the only reason I was interested in that was because in the comics, at least, she is Colossus's sister. And I was like, that could be interesting if they bring in Deadpool and Colossus.
He's doing a little lucky.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think I'm confusing magic with a different Marvel character, so I'm looking up. Bear with. Just keep on doing. Yeah.
I think her name's Ilyana Rasputin or something.
That doesn't help.
but yeah, I thought, oh, that could be quite cool if they're gonna sort of tie them together. Like, it's quite interesting to me that you've got Colossus, the quite, like, well, you know how he is in Deadpool, he's like a big lovable bear, he's got all these philosophical
Codes by
speeches
the
going
books
on.
and all that.
Yeah, and like, he's surrounded by his X-Men, and then you have his sister, who is in like a horror-esque thriller type X-Men film where she's in like some type of institution. And I was like, well, like, if they do something with that, that could be quite interesting to see that dynamic. But then I thought, nah, they're never gonna fucking do that, so why bother?
So the whole reason that thing's set up is it's fronted as like a hospital to help these young adults cope with their powers that are obviously beyond their control. But it's not, and it's literally a company that is wanting to make weapons out of these children.
Wait, that's never been done in an X-Men movie before.
No, it hasn't. No. So this entire time they've been trying to help them, it's no, they've just been trying to like condition them as weapons to use for their stuff. And the whole horror aspect comes from one of the kids that gets there, and it turns out I can't remember whether it's the fact that she's like a powerful psychic or it's just the fact that her mutant ability turns people's worst fears against them. So like it makes them real and stuff like that. And that's where the horror aspect comes in, because you've got these kids that are like have done something bad with their powers, which now leaves them mentally scarred, and put them in a room with someone where their mutant ability is turning their worst fears real and against them.
That sounds pretty fucking cool.
It would be, but they didn't do it well.
Did you guys ever watch Legion?
Yes.
No.
You should watch Legion. Legion is
It's
so
very
fucking
good.
good. Do you know what it's about?
Yeah, it's about Charles's son. And
Yeah, and it's kind of like a psychedelic horror show.
Yeah, it's
I-
very
like-
stylized. Very stylized.
like, I never went out of my way to say I'm not watching it. It literally just
Passed you
it
by.
was just one of those
Flew under the
shows that
radar
passed me
for you,
by,
yeah.
Also, the character I was thinking of, by the way, is I gonna have to look up how to pronounce her name because I can't remember already. Nico Minoru. Minoru. I'm not sure how to pronounce her surname. Who was in
recognize the name.
who was in the Runaways TV show, and is going to be in Midnight Suns, apparently being played by the same actress who played her in Runaways, which is cool. But yeah, for some reason,
there was a Runaways as well.
in my
I'm
head, I
quite
thought
Dagger.
that character was called Magic because she is a mage with a magic staff.
Yeah.
We've talked for an
Thinking
hour
about it.
about 2 topics so far.
Yeah. 2 topics and God knows how much running down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. What do we want to talk about next? We also barely talked about Moon Knight. Moon Knight looked good. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, that's a meaty one. So we've missed talking about the entirety of the Book of Boba Fett. We've just had episode 4 come out. Let's talk about it, I guess. Who wants to go first?
I feel slightly weird about Book of Boba Fett. Like, I really like it, but, and I know like you and I have sort of discussed this, Pete, but there is like a little bit of me that kind of agrees with a lot of the naysayers online about how he's not as badass as I kind of imagined him, and I get that, but also I think justifying it in my head as he did spend a lot of time with the Tuscans. Oh, by the way, are we doing spoilers or?
Let's just do spoilers. It's been 4 weeks since it started, and the last episode came out nearly a week ago, so fuck it.
Okay.
Full spoilers
we're
for Book
gonna
of
do
Boba Fett.
spoilers. Yeah. So obviously he spent a lot of time in the Tuscans. He spent probably quite a while in the Sarlacc pit, I imagine, trying to get out. And a lot of things went on for him. And the last time he was seen on screen, he just got put in the Sarlacc pit in one of the most stupid ways possible, and I think anyone, especially a badass bounty hunter who's feared across the galaxy, would be pretty pissed off if that was the way he was going to go out, And so like I can kind of understand that. Yeah, he may want a change in career, as it were. And also he's probably a little bit rusty because he hasn't been in like well, I mean, you could argue that he wasn't rusty because he still seemed pretty adept when fighting with the Tuscans. But, you know, outside of that, he hadn't really done much. And so I can kind of understand why they're kind of like leading up to him being like the badass he once was and, you know, kind of doing things a different way. But there are still some scenes where I just cannot get over the fact that he seems, as I said to Pete, like a boomer who just doesn't have a fucking clue what he's doing. And it really takes you out of it, I feel. Like there was this one scene in the last episode where he pins a droid against a wall and says, "Do you know who I am? I'm Boba Fett." And I'm just like,
And have you seen the screen cap of it with the subtitles on, by the way? It's something like the droid, then the caption for the droid is something like stutters in fear, switches itself off or something like that. It's like such a brilliant like explanation of how the droid responds. It's beautiful.
and like don't get me wrong, I laughed. I thought it was funny, but at the same time, immediately afterwards, I was like, that was so stupid. Like he's like, you know, a really well-known and, as I said, feared bounty hunter across the galaxy. And it's just like he's losing his marbles, just going around trying to tell as many people who he is as possible, like, for no reason, really. Like, why would you say that to a droid? It just, I don't know. It's,
but
I'm
it's
really
so good at the
conflicted
same
about
time.
It's well, like,
The thing is for me, and I think this took me a long time to get here with Star Wars, because I was definitely a person who for a while hated the prequels and such like, and I'm kind of at this point now, which I feel like probably most of the people creating Star Wars content are at, which is that, not that I'm saying that I'm in any way comparable to Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau or anything, but I'm just saying, like, I think there's this element of just kind of going, Star Wars is goofy. Star Wars has always been goofy. From day one, Star Wars was goofy. Star Wars not episode one, the original Star Wars film had a giant furball as a character, like a walking dog, basically, as a character. That's silly. That's goofy. They get stuck in literal trash and nearly die. That's kind of silly. You got the stupid fucking droids. That's silly. And then obviously as the films go on, like Yoda is fucking ridiculous in Empire Strikes Back. The Ewoks are fucking ridiculous. The Gungans are fucking ridiculous. That is part of Star Wars' DNA. So to see Boba Fett doing silly, goofy shit, like pinning a droid up against a wall and going, "Do you know who I am? I am Boba Fett." Like, yeah, it's fucking stupid, but that is Star Wars. To me, that is full-blown Star Wars. Yeah, at the same time, I do also like the more serious stuff in Star Wars, because Star Wars is both. And I think this show is doing both quite a lot. What I think it maybe is not doing as well as some other Star Wars projects is balancing those two. Because it does feel like a little bit of a disconnect. Now, whether a large part of that is probably because a lot of people have expectations of who Boba Fett is coming into this show, and they're maybe not meeting those expectations, because, as you've said, Boba Fett is a badass. In the comic books, he is, sure. In the Legends video games and novels, he is, sure. In I guess Clone Wars, he is a little bit as a teenager, kind of.
I mean, I'd say he is. But I mean, he's like fueled by like hatred at that point. So,
but in the films, is he? Like, I get he's got a reputation in the films,
say anything, does
but he
so
basically says nothing and then bonks his head into a fucking wall and falls into a sark pit and dies. It's basically his appearance in the films. So like, I'm kind of like, yeah, I get that people have a lot of expectations and they have the idolized version of Boba Fett, and I think this maybe comes to a similar issue to what people had. I'm going to get controversial here. To The Last Jedi. Hear me out here. Is that people had expectations of who Luke Skywalker should be on screen, and the Luke Skywalker that was portrayed in The Last Jedi did not meet those expectations for a lot of people, and a lot of people write off that film purely based on that. There are other reasons to write off that film if you dislike it. I like it, but it's a flawed film. But like some people will go, it's a shit film just because of its portrayal of Luke Skywalker, because it didn't live up to what they wanted Luke Skywalker to live up to. And I think that's maybe the danger with doing it with these legacy characters. Solo is another example of that. Solo, a Star Wars story, where there are some people I know who have refused to watch it because how could you ever do a Han Solo film without Harrison Ford? Spoiler alert, they did it. It's actually pretty fucking good. Seriously, watch Solo. It's probably my favorite Disney. Well, it is my favorite Disney Star Wars film. It might be up there as one of my favorite pieces of Disney Star Wars content.
I'm still a fan of Rogue One, but yeah, it's definitely.
I like Rogue One as well, but I prefer Solo personally. But yeah, so I think this is one of those struggles with dealing with legacy characters it comes with baggage, right? And
Yeah.
I almost wonder, to be honest with you, whether the Mandalorian, and I don't know this, and I don't think they mentioned it on the behind the scenes show, The Gallery, when they made season 1, but I almost wonder whether the Mandalorian season 1 was originally pitched as a Boba Fett TV show, maybe set in between the films or before he falls into a Sark pit, or maybe set afterwards, who knows. But it almost feels like maybe at one point they wanted to do a Boba Fett TV show, and then they went, let's not do that because it has so much baggage. Let's create a new character who is using the visuals and the iconography of Boba Fett. So he has a jetpack, he has the helmet and everything, but it's his own thing.
A new character so we can
start fresh.
Yeah, start fresh.
Because Din very much feels like how I imagine Boba Fett is in a lot of people's heads. He is badass, but he's not infallible. He is that kind of doesn't talk a lot, kind of silent stranger. That's what a lot of people think of Boba Fett. And then maybe they wrote themselves into a bit of a corner, because when you then have to do a Boba Fett TV show, if you do it the way that maybe some people want Boba Fett to be done, you just do the Mandalorian again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I can definitely see that being the case. And I you know, as I said to you, I don't think it's wrong necessarily for people to have, you know, these expectations for the characters, because if it is like, especially with Boba Fett, you know, like he is in the comics, and
which
the current runs are canon. So if you come from reading the comics, which realistically are probably the only bit of Star Wars media in since he was seen on screen in the last film, is like the only thing you have to know about Boba Fett, you know, outside of Legends. And so you have to take that as this is the character. And if that is canon, and you've been reading that for God knows how long, and you're invested in that character, to suddenly have this canon version of the character change into something completely different, yeah, I can understand why you'd be a little bit, you know, miffed about that.
I also think it's not completely different. It's different, but like the Boba Fett you know is still there in scenes like when he deals with the biker gang, both in his fight in the cantina, which, by the way, I don't know for sure, but rumor has it that cantina is supposed to be Toshi's station, because the human woman who, like, her husband or whatever is getting beaten up is apparently, it's some actress playing the same character who was in deleted scenes from Luke going to Toshi's station in the original film. Like, apparently in the credits it's the same character name, so that's cool. That might be Toshi's station. It's supposed to be someone who was friends with Luke Skywalker. Cool little tidbit. But, you know, when he's beating up the I'm blanking on the name of the species, but Nikto, thank you. When he's beating up the Nikto bikers, that feels like Boba Fett. When he's on the train, that feels like Boba Fett. When he's shooting the bikers in the most recent episode, that feels like Boba Fett. So, like, there are definitely moments where he feels like Boba Fett, and a lot of the stuff that's happening in the present day also feels like Boba Fett. It's just that there's not a lot, frankly, happening in the present day. But interspersed with that, we're seeing a different side to Boba Fett, which might just be him letting his guard down. Like, it literally could just be that, like, maybe he feels comfortable around Fennec Shand and therefore is willing to be a little bit weird and goofy, and maybe he hasn't been willing to do that for a long time.
Or maybe because, like, now that he's fully healed, obviously he was, like, still injured before. Maybe he got brain damage and it made him a little bit senile, and now he's fully healed. He'll be back in top form.
But
He just had a very large concussion. Just a very large concussion. That was all.
And it's also worth mentioning as well, like people have said like, oh, it seems like such a switch from who he was in Return of the Jedi, which again, he has like maybe 2 lines in Return of the Jedi, if that. I don't actually know if he speaks in Return of the Jedi, I'm not certain. But the flashbacks that we are seeing, they span 5 years. The Mandalorian season 1 takes place in 5 ABY after Battle of Yavin, so that's 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So all of those flashbacks span 5 years, and presumably most of that is him living with the Tusken Raiders. So that is quite a lot of time for someone to change their personality, particularly if all they've ever known is bounty hunting and this harsh life of being a loner in the galaxy and killing for money. And then suddenly you're shown camaraderie and affection, and maybe these reminders, these echoes of the life you had when you lived on Camino with your father and the Kaminoans, who probably quite cared for you. And you're suddenly being kind of, oh, this is what affection and connection feels like, and that could very much change a person, I think. I don't think that necessarily saying that the audience should be aware of all this and just accept it is the right way to go, because I do think my biggest issue with the Book of Boba Fett is the structure. I think the flashbacks, it's kind of doing the thing that Arrow did, which annoyed me when Arrow did it, is that when Arrow worked best was when both flashbacks and present day story were moving at a good pace, right? And you were getting, ooh, cool story bits here and ooh, cool story bits here. But sometimes, actually quite a lot of the time, Arrow did either nothing's happening in the flashbacks because but we need to put flashbacks in because otherwise we break our format, or nothing's happening in the present day but something's happening in the flashbacks, and again we can't just do a full episode of flashbacks because that breaks our format. Book of Boba Fett feels like that at the moment, which I'm hoping means that we are done with flashbacks after this episode. We're halfway through the season and we're basically, the only thing that's not there is him tracking Din to Typhon. That's the only bit of the story we don't currently have. So I'm really hoping we get no flashbacks next episode and we just deal with the present day stuff, because it does feel like the present day stuff is really crawling. And then weirdly the opposite happened this episode, where I went, well, I kind of pieced all of this, like this isn't really adding that much to me, because
literally
all of the stuff that could have been big deal stuff, like Fennec first interacting with Boba, kind of feels like they didn't do much with it. And I don't think that's a fault of her performance. Ming Na Wen, I think is her name. I don't think that's a fault of her performance, but things like when she sees this man who, like, surely she knows what clone troopers look like. And there's probably a family resemblance between him and Omega as well. And she has zero reaction to him with his helmet off saying, yeah, I'm Boba Fett. Like, that's such a rich moment to explore how she feels about the fact that she basically died and then got brought back to life with cybernetics. Like, how does she feel about that? That's the stuff that would have made those flashbacks worth it to me. But me seeing how he got his fire spray gunship back is okay, cool action sequence, I guess.
And also, I just feel like there wasn't really any moment in the flashbacks that made me think like, oh, and now she's gonna want to stay with him. It was just kind of like him being like, okay, where do you want to be dropped off? And she's like,
I think I've worked it out. I think she fell in love with him when he was being nice to the bantha and was like, go out and have babies. And she was like, this dude's sweet little, he needs protection. Because again, I've pointed this out.
Bantha now, that's what she was like.
Well, I've pointed this out. I'm going to ruin this for everyone watching this. Technically, because Fennec Shand shows up in the Bad Batch and is at least like 18, probably more like in her mid-20s to early 30s in that show. And this show at this point is set 27 years later, I think I worked out as roughly. 19 years to get you to A New Hope. And then I think there's a 5-year gap between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And then a year and a half between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I think this is all from memory, but that would bring you to 25 years and another 5 years, 30 years later, roughly, would put her at least 10 years older, if not 20 years older than Boba Fett. So actually, it's not like boyfriend girlfriend energy. It's mummy and son energy. She's mummy.
I think when you first said this, I looked into it a little bit as well, and I think like we know for sure that Boba is either 41 or 42 years old
Yeah.
in this show.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming, and obviously, you know, as you said, she had to have been around like
She had to be an adult, basically, in Bad Batch,
Yeah.
so 18 minimum.
yeah. So you might as well just take like the actress's like near enough current age, which is round about 60. You know, if you just take that for face value, yeah, she's like 20 years older than Boba Fett,
So she's
which
mummy.
is crazy.
I want Boba Fett to be like, Mama, Mama, to her.
Why do you say these things?
Please never do that again.
So that's why she's sticking with him, is because she saw him being all soft with the bantha and was like, oh, baby needs protection.
See, I was thinking about it, and I actually think it would have been funny if he had partial amnesia, like that just came and went, or you know, something wrong with his like long-term memory or something, and so and that's why she sticks with it, because like he has a general idea of what he wants to do, but like occasionally he just forgets even who he is, and like she's like, yeah, I'll just stick around to see, like, you know, I'll look
Make
after
sure
him.
he
He did
doesn't die.
save my life. And then like you could have like the scene with the droid, and he's like pinning it against the wall, and he's like, do you know who I am? And he's like, who am I? Turns to Fennec, and she's like, Boba Fett, and he's like, I am Boba Fett.
Well, yeah, what if it's like some sort of Fight Club thing where we're all seeing it from his perspective, and then during the final episode we're gonna have it revealed what Fennec's been seeing the whole time, and it's
Yeah.
being stuff like that. But yeah, no, I think overall it's a decent show, but I do have issues with its pacing. I find it weird. Some people are complaining online that the show looks cheap. Show looks
It
great.
just looks like the rest of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like I feel like since Star Wars started back up with, you know, the Disney stuff, it got a higher budget, and I feel like a lot of like, I think what's happened is because they're still using a lot of practical effects.
Yeah,
The
but if that's what they're complaining about, that's fucking weird to me.
No.
Yeah.
Like
Okay, sorry.
like I think because they're still using practical effects, they have completely out-leveled that by their use of CGI and high definition like filmmaking stuff. And so when you contrast that, it just looks really strange. And I feel like that is the like I feel like to some people that's probably the issue. Like for me, I just don't care. I've
Yeah.
just come to realize like Star Wars has always just kind of looked a little bit weird because it's set in like outer space, you know, in a galaxy far, far away. Like it probably isn't going to look like anything you might imagine to look like on Earth. And so I'm just like, well, who, like, for all we know, like in the last episode, there was that like stop frame animation spider.
Yeah,
Like
the
I was like,
monks. I can't remember what their name is. Bombdar monks, I think, or something like that.
yeah, I was like, that's weird, and that was literally all I thought, because I was like, well, who knows? Something like that might exist in this world.
So
you know?
so they existed in the original, in Return of the Jedi, in the background, and then I don't think canon stuff has done much with them, but legend stuff delved deep into the lore, which is that they are like monks who originated Jabba's palace, and they will have their brains in jars, and then they're just droids with brains in jars. And I don't remember it moving particularly in Return of the Jedi, but it was stop motion, so they did stop motion, and I'm cool with it. But yeah, maybe stuff like that looks cheap, but I remember hearing it after the speeder bike episode, which I do think the speeder bike sequence didn't look great, but I don't think that was to do with budget. That was to do with editing more so than anything else. It just felt like it was cut in a kind of sluggish way.
Yeah.
But like none of the visual effects have really made me go, oof. You know, like, remember how I've been commenting about iffy green screen in Hawkeye? I've not noticed any iffy green screen in Book of Boba Fett. I've noticed 2 bits of like CGI where I'm like, oh, that's not movie quality, but again, it's a TV show, which is there was one scene where Boba was riding a bantha, and I went, that's a CGI Boba, but like it wasn't egregious. It was just like, that's not real.
It was like noticeable, but not like in your face. Sort of.
Again, probably only noticeable to an asshole like me who notices these sorts of things. And then, as much as I think it looked quite good, the Trandoshan being afraid when BK was about to tear off his arm, like clearly the prosthetic Trandoshan couldn't emote as much, so they like clearly had the prosthetic Trandoshan and then kind of CGI'd over it. And I was like, it looks pretty good, but I can tell that this is different to the ones in the background who are purely prosthetic sort of thing.
Yeah, and like I don't think that's an issue. I think again, if you look, it's I feel like we're making the same argument about everything to do with Star Wars. That like a lot of people nitpick in Star Wars. The same argument we give is you look back at the rest of the Star Wars movies and you realize nothing really has changed. I mean, they say it looks cheap. Well, the first Star Wars movies were cheap. I mean,
really
like,
fucking cheap compared to it.
For thinking, for example, just like the ships and the helmets and stuff, like the X-Wings and whatever, like they literally made shit out of like aluminium foil. That is literally it. And they just painted it and shit. Like it was very fucking cheap. And I feel like nowadays, because they expect a higher level of quality just from modern day technology, I feel like when they pair it with like the sort of like physical props and everything, it doesn't click in their brain that nothing has changed really. That they're still using the same tricks and everything. It's just the contrast just doesn't like work for them.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to what I was saying when Black Christensen, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, Black Christensen, I think is how you pronounce it. I've only ever seen it written. Chrysanthemum, is that it? I think they've said it once in the show, and I've like always read it as Kirstanson, which is not how you pronounce it. So like I don't know how to pronounce it anymore. Anyways,
Dunstan.
I'm going to call him BK or Salty because he's called both of those things in the comics as well. When he first showed up, I was like, "Oh my fucking god!" He's like an awesome character who's like very prominent in the Doctor Aphra comics, which are my favorite Star Wars comics that are currently being done. So I was like, "Oh my god, he's fucking live action! That's so awesome!" But then I also was like, he doesn't look quite like what I imagined coming from comic book to screen. And then I thought about it more and looked at pictures of Chewbacca and went, but he looks exactly like how a live action Wookiee would look like, which is a man in a giant, slightly oversized fursuit. Like you can't, like he does look like live action Wookiees. It's just when you see it in comic book form, your brain kind of, makes it look better than it ever could do practically. And it 100% looks like what that character would look like in live action. Like they didn't do a bad job at all. But does it look a bit goofy? Yeah, a little bit, but so does Chewbacca. Like Chewbacca actually looks really quite goofy when you really think about it. So,
and I mean, it's like the same with the biker gang, the mods as they're called. People hating on that, saying oh, it just looks stupid, like retro bikers.
I loved it.
Like with cybernet, I loved it. And
yeah, no, I really didn't mind it. Like, I mean, the colors of the bikes could have been a bit more muted, but other than that, I had no problems with it.
But again, people saying like it doesn't make sense for Tatooine, I saw such a brilliant point, which is look at Coruscant. Coruscant is so like 50s retro inspired, and you look at things like what's it called, fucking airspeeder. I was trying to think of the term for it. Airspeeder that they fly in Attack of the Clones, which is like bright yellow. Like that is the sort of visual style that those swoop bikes have in Book of Boba Fett, and people going, well, that doesn't make sense for Tatooine. Look at lots of countries that have just got motor vehicles in the last couple of decades, and a lot of them are these more retro vehicles. And what do they look for inspiration of how to stylize them? America, and often old America. So yeah, actually, it makes total sense that these kids who are like, oh, I wish I could have grown up on Coruscant, go, what do we want our swoop bikes to look like? Coruscant swoop bikes. Well, and they make them clean and stuff.
Also, we don't really know anything like about them. Like, just regardless of, even if they were born and raised on Tatooine, like, I feel like people are forgetting that it is a huge galaxy. with thousands, maybe millions of planets.
In the
Who
Excel
knows?
spreadsheet I have for when we do a Star Wars campaign of known Star Wars planets, it's something like 4,000 planets that have been
Yeah.
named in Star Wars.
Exactly.
And that's not
And
complete, but
to think that there wouldn't be that sort of style on any one of those planets, or
Yeah.
the fact that there is space travel and that not everyone on Tatooine is from Tatooine.
Not everyone on Tatooine has to look like fucking Luke Skywalker and Anakin in the first Star Wars film in Phantom Menace.
I mean, you look at the Mos Espa Cantina, like a lot of people in that look lavish,
Mm-hmm.
like, and also brightly colored. So it doesn't really, it doesn't, it doesn't track with me to say that, their choice or of style for their bikes or how they look doesn't make sense for where they are, because it's Star Wars. Nothing really makes sense. You're nitpicking something in a fictional galaxy where there are giant walking dogs, as you said. like,
Final thing I want to ask about Book of Boba Fett, but by all means, if anyone else wants to say anything, then by all means. But what I mentioned it earlier, but what do you guys think about? I don't even know if you guys are aware of the controversy supposedly about them renaming Slave One to Fire Spray Gunship.
I mean, I always thought that was just bullshit anyway. It was simply they just like named the model of the ship.
They just decided
And
to get rid of
everyone
the
just-
slightly not politically correct name, basically.
Well, the problem was like they haven't even really changed it.
Nope.
All they did was name the model differently on like a Lego set, and
Yep.
people went absolutely crazy. Like,
And then the thing that kind of re-sparked this is that in an interview and then in the show, Tamara Morrison said that they were referring to it as the Fire Spray Gunship in the show, and then that's what they did refer to it as. But again, that's not him categorically saying it's not called Slave One, although I do think Disney will never refer to it as Slave One again. But
Yeah, no, it won't be referred to,
but it has always been a Fire Spray Gunship as well. And, as much as I think that if you want it to be called Slave One, then maybe you should be questioning why you're so passionate about it being called Slave One. But if you want it to be called Slave One, it's one of those things where, like, nothing that has been done yet breaks that illusion for you in this fictional galaxy. But also, if Boba Fett decided to change its name, kind of makes sense because, it's that's what his dad's ship was named, and when's he gonna get his own fucking identity? He wears his dad's armor, flies his dad's ship. Like, come on, Boba, sort your shit out.
I mean, like, I could just be completely wrong here, but when that whole debacle first sparked up, I did like a little bit of research, but it was so long ago now. I don't know if I'm just making shit up, but I'm pretty sure it was named the Slave One because, like, Django was a slave or something, and
Possibly.
like that ship was his ticket to freedom or something. So I feel like if there is actually backstory behind it, and it is a tale of him gaining his freedom, I can maybe understand why some people would be like, okay, well, you're kind of taking away that character's identity. And I mean, it's not like slavery is
Not a thing in Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean,
I saw such a great meme, which was Padme and Anakin meeting for the first time in Phantom Menace, and it's Padme going, "Are you a fire spray gunship?" And then Anakin responding, "My name is Anakin, and I'm a human being."
But yeah, I think, I mean, at the end of the day, I just don't really care.
Yeah, that's where I kind of come down on it.
It's a ship. I mean, as long as you have the ship and you have Boba Fett, like, I don't really give a shit what they call it. Like,
it's on the one hand, I'm like, why do people care? And on the other hand, I'm like, I'm so not surprised by Star Wars fans anymore. So
yeah, I think if they'd explained in detail, like, when Django was still around, as to why his ship was named that way, and you got a little bit more of like characterization behind it, and you understood the meaning of it. Then if they went ahead and wanted to change it, I could maybe be like, okay, yeah, all right. But as it stands, they didn't really go into much of it, and so I just don't care.
I'm not even sure it was called Slave One on screen in Attack of the Clones. I don't know, but I'm not sure. But what they should absolutely do is rename it canonically to Polynesian Spa.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Come on, Fennec. Join me on the Polynesian Spa.
Oh god.
Anything more to say on Book of Boba Fett?
I reckon the reason he's been acting weird is because he's still high off of that lizard that went in his brain.
Oh my god. The fucking... honestly, one thing I love about this show, as much as some people dislike the comedy that Boba Fett has, Tamara Morrison's fucking great as a comedic actor, it turns out, because his fucking delivery of, I'm sorry, I think your lizard flew up, or whatever, your pet flew up my
I
nose
think
or
I
something.
swallowed your lizard.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the fucking delivery of it, like so serious, was just like, it had me gut laughing. It was fucking great.
And then like when he comes back from it all, and he's like,
I thought I dreamt that or something.
yeah, yeah. I thought that was good.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I reckon he's just still high off of that lizard, to be honest.
Maybe I when it first went in, I was like, oh my god, is this like a lore drop where he's just had a lizard controlling his brain ever since, and everything he did in The Mandalorian was just lizard, like ratatouilleing him around.
Oh, dude, I hated those lizard scenes. I tell you, like as soon as that lizard leapt onto his face, I had to turn away, and I heard the sounds, and I was like, no. It was honestly awful. Oh, it just weirds me out thinking about it.
Do you know what I really hope? Oh, what is his fucking name? I know his Sith name is Darth Krayt, but I can't remember his actual name. But there's a Sith Lord in the expanded universe or Legends who was a Jedi at the same time as Anakin, and then in the Clone Wars he got like shipwrecked on Tatooine and ended up becoming a Tusken Raider, and then after everything became a Sith Lord, and then he got kept alive by using wrong biotechnology and was alive 200 years later. It's the whole thing. So he was a Tusken Raider Jedi. I really hope they bring him canon just so that they can have the lizard crawl up his nose, and that's why he turns to the dark side. He's like, those
Because he has a
fuckers.
lizard in his head.
The lizard is actually the Sith Lord. But no, I think it's decent. I would say I don't enjoy it as much as The Mandalorian, but that's purely because of pacing, I think. Like, I think pacing and The Mandalorian had just like such a strong hook with Baby Yoda. So
Yeah, I think it's just different, I guess, to
yeah.
I think even what everyone expected. I think everyone's expectations at some point, were proven otherwise.
But that could be said for The Mandalorian, because season 1, all of the marketing for it didn't include Baby Yoda at all. So everyone just thought it was going to be this like lone gunman wandering the galaxy show, and then suddenly it's like, nope, it's a adopted dad story that line now.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
Although I
it's
feel
like 3 men and a baby sort of thing, but it's just Mandalorian and him. It's like
I feel like there was less so, or there was less expectations
sure.
for the Mandalorian, just because, as you said, it wasn't like a legacy character.
Funnily enough, by the way, on Wikipedia, Mandalorian season 3 is still slated for spring 2022, which I highly doubt, because I think they've only just started shooting, or they haven't started shooting. But it might be this year, which would be cool. If it is this year, it's probably going to be December, though, would be my guess, because that's when season 2 aired. But yeah, no. One thing that did occur to me, just random side note with Mandalorian, there's a scene in season 2 where he puts Baby Yoda into like the guts of his ship to repair something, and it's that whole like, no, the red one, that whole bit.
yeah.
Did that part of his ship need fixing for fucking years and years and years, and he just never, because he didn't trust droids, because he doesn't like droids, so he just had no way to repair it ever, and then he got this like fucking gremlin child who's like, Oh my!
He knows that like can't do anything right. Like
But he's like, but it fits, and therefore shove him into the vent.
it fits. Do advanced mechanics now, child.
Yep.
I mean, it was just very reminiscent for me of Baby Groot in Guardians 2.
But I mean, also going back to the comedic thing, that is actually a prime example of the silly goofiness that things like strangling the droid was. Yeah, getting Baby Yoda to rewire his ship and then hit Baby Yoda fucking electrocuting himself is fucking stupid. And like that was the opening to an episode, and it was fucking stupid, but I loved it. So,
Before we move on, I just thought I'd bring up the fact that obviously at the end of last episode,
oh yeah,
it played the Mandalorian theme when they said they had to get muscle. And now I'm just very curious as to whether or not they're actually going to bring in Din. I know when I was talking to you,
who else would they bring in?
Baby Yoda,
Well-
but he's got fucking dench arms now.
Just got denched. I went through the Kingpin fitness regime. I'm ready to fucking go, boys.
well, Pete and I were talking about this, and like to us, the Mandalorian theme is just Din's theme.
That's what I associate it with.
However,
I hope I didn't just fuck up the recording a little bit, but I may have just had something flash up on screen. I apologize if something just flashed up on screen. I'm just checking the actual Mandalorian soundtrack because I've got it on my computer. And the theme tune is, I'm pretty sure, literally just called The Mandalorian, but I'm just double checking. Yeah, it's called The Mandalorian. So it's like not Mandalorians, it's The Mandalorian is the name of the.
and so you know, if like we're just wondering basically how they're going to bring Din in, because obviously the last we saw Din, he had the Darksaber and he was with Bo-Katan, and like they had to work that entire thing out, and like Book of Boba Fett, from what we know, is set pretty much directly after that, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how they like if they're going to bring Din in before his show.
Yeah.
Unless you know, this is kind of like a teaser for maybe season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, where they start getting like plans prepared, and then you know we see next season of Din or the Mandalorian, and then we go back to Book of Boba Fett, and then it's finally time to bring them all in, because otherwise, like I just don't know how they're going to play it unless we were all wrong and the Mandalorian theme is actually just for any Mandalorian,
Or at
and
the
he
very
just
least, like
brings it.
his clan of Mandalorians. Like, because like one person I thought, like if it was anyone other than him, the only person I could think of it possibly being, which would be weird because we all assumed she was dead, and also again, like it's not her theme, but the armorer from Mandalorian season 1. But because
I don't know.
obviously, like the Mandalorian theme, which is what they play at the end, is the Mandalorian's theme. But
Yeah.
a lot of other music that plays during the Mandalorian, including when he's hanging out with other Mandalorians, is still very, very similar. So you could say that like, and obviously the Book of Boba Fett's theme song is also in that sort of musical realm. So you could say that like, but it sounded exactly like the Mandalorian theme. So yeah.
It could be a case that we get a cameo, or they basically contact him to ask for muscle, so he could be like, yeah, I know some people. For example, we could see is his name Bilbo?
That's the comedian's name. It's
Yeah.
not the character name.
Yeah, but you know his character. Yeah, we could see like, you know, people that were in the last few seasons come to help. You know, because they're asking him for help, but you know he could be busy with whatever he's doing in season 3 and what have you.
Maybe they call him up and he just goes, "Fuck off, I'm busy."
Yeah, hang on, I'll just call Luke. Let me just.
I still
like,
think it was a bit of a wasted opportunity for there to be zero reaction to Boba Fett seeing Luke or Luke seeing Boba Fett because they don't see each other. Like Boba dips before
Yeah.
Luke shows up. It's like could
Yeah,
have been some
there could have
juicy
been-
opportunity there.
Yeah, it could have literally just been like, yeah.
It should have been that Umbrella Academy meme where they're just flying past each other.
I do feel though, like from what we know of Boba, he's been in the bounty hunting biz a long time. It seems strange to me that he would then just immediately, like when he thinks about if he can get muscle, yeah, let me just ring up this guy who I've only seen a few times and did a little bit of work with and ask if he can, help, rather than be like, oh, let's go out and find all of the other fucking
Bosk.
badasses I've made,
Bosk,
acquaintance
Dengar,
It's a
IG-88.
case.
IG-88.
It's a case of what was it? His thing saying that it's it's handy that people think he's dead,
Oh, that's true.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
That and
Okay.
it's the connections thing as well, because you can't just come out of the blue being like, "Hey, I'm not dead. Give me a hand." And it's been
Yeah.
like, well, bro, it's been like years. No, the fuck.
Yeah, but saying that though, it's not like Din and Bo-Katan like had many Mandalorian allies left. From what we know, neither of them really have many like allies that are still Mandalorians.
In fact, they've got one less than they had earlier in the season because the male Mandalorian who was hanging out with Bo-Katan just disappeared for the finale.
Yeah, literally. Like they kept Sasha Banks because she's a wrestler, and they were like, "Oh, star power," even though nobody really gives a shit. Like, so yeah, like unless Bo-Katan actually does have like an armada of Mandalorians in her back pocket, then it's not like Din can really do much.
But as you know, like one Mandalorian is a lot of muscle. Like you don't need an army.
I really hope they don't go this route because I think I've said this to you guys before. I hope they don't do anything with Omega in Book of Boba Fett until potentially Omega meets Boba Fett in Bad Batch, because that seems to be the appropriate place to have them meet. And also, if you have Omega show up in Book of Boba Fett, you know that she's never at risk in Bad Batch. But it would be kind of cool if he calls on his sister and she's like this badass Mandalorian and brings the Bad Batch with her, and then Tamara Morrison has to play like 5 other characters. That would be pretty great.
Oh,
Honestly,
God.
if they brought in
He
the
has
Bad
said that
Batch,
he would be
be
up for
pretty
playing other
fucking sick.
clones in live action, so I reckon we'll
That'd
probably
be
see him as
pretty cool.
Rex in Ahsoka. But
That would also be prog.
another crazy one, which again, nothing to do with the Mandalorian theme, but with BK being in Boba's employ, BK's friends with Dr. Aphra, who I love. If Dr. Aphra came up, she's not really going to be that helpful. She's an archaeologist and a backstabber, but she does have 2 psychotic droids at this point in Star Wars canon called Triple O and BT-1. BT-1 is an astromech droid who is just filled with guns and rockets and shit and likes to blow stuff up, and Triple O is a protocol droid who likes to torture people and render the flesh from their bones.
I thought you were going to talk about Mr. Bones as well.
Who's
I think
Mr.
that's
Bones?
his name. It's one of like the really old thingy droids that has like, yeah. Anyway, don't worry. That's one that's very long ago, so don't worry.
Fair enough. But yeah, I would love to have just 2 psychotic droids show up, and then they be like the plot device for season 2 is Boba Fett having to deal with 2 psychotic droids terrorizing Tatooine. But
Also, something I was going to say that it might be interesting. I know Kenobi's way off, but we might see BK and Kenobi because there is stories between them too.
his first appearance is him being sent by Vader to try and hunt down Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So could
was it that one or was it Jabba the Hutt? Because I swear there's one where Jabba the Hutt basically employs him to find out who's been fucking up his war attacks.
You're
And
right. It
turns
might
out
be
it's
Jabba the
Luke's.
Hutt who sent him, but I think it's
'cause
in a
turns
Darth
out
Vader
it's
comic.
Kenobi and Luke's uncle that did it or
Yeah.
something. So he goes over there and fights them.
Yeah, it might be Jabba who employs them, but it's in a Darth Vader comic. I'm pretty sure that he appears.
But yeah, no, we could see that. That'd be pretty bog. But
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Book of Boba Fett.
we have.
let's move on.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about John Wick 4 at all?
I mean, there's not really much to say other than that I'm just pretty excited for it. I mean, we don't know anything about it other than that it was meant to come out at the same time as The Matrix 4, and then
I forgot about that. Yeah,
Wasn't.
shit.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure they were supposed to come out like within a week of each other or something, and then they
I
decided
think it
not
was
to.
literally the same day.
Was it really? Jesus.
Damn.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I am excited for John Wick 4. I guess real quick, I saw The Matrix 4 and I quite liked it. I don't think either of you have seen it, but
I have not. No, I have not heard good things though.
I'll just very quickly say, because I don't want to go into any spoilers for it, that The Matrix 4 is a weird film that I don't think was necessarily made for people to like. What I mean by that is Warner Brothers were like, we're making a fourth Matrix film, and Wachowskis, you can either come back or fuck you. And then Lana Wachowski went, well, if you're gonna make a Matrix film, then I'm the one who decides what happens with the Matrix. And she made it out of spite to Warner Brothers for forcing her to make it,
Okay.
and all of the people who've misunderstood the Matrix and co-opted what it was about. And the entire film is this very angsty meta fuck you to people who are like, this is what the Matrix is about, and kind of
Now I
redefines
know
what it
that,
is.
I might like it when I watch it. But...
So at the very least, I'm like, fucking respect you as a filmmaker that you did that. But at the same time, if you want it to be a lot like the previous Matrix films, in some ways it is, and in some ways, probably the ways that a lot of people wanted it to be, it's nothing like that. So, yeah.
If I go into it watching it knowing it's basically a big fuck you to Warner Brothers, then
There is literally a line, minor spoilers for The Matrix 4. Within the context of The Matrix 4, they have to make a new product. Like, Thomas Anderson and his colleagues have to make a new product, and there is literally the line, Warner Brothers is forcing us to do this. So
okay.
it's not subtle in any way that it's doing that particular angle, but it also feels like, you know how like the hard right in America took the term red pilled and like ran with it during the Trump era. It kind of feels like it's a massive fuck you to those people as well. So yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
At the very least, I think if you watch it going, that's what Lana Wachowski's, at least in my opinion, because obviously I'm not Lana Wachowski, but in my opinion, that's what she was trying to do. I'm like, that's fucking cool. But it's also like, let's just put it this way, the fighting scenes are pretty lackluster. Like, I'm pretty happy to say that. Like,
Fair enough.
so if that's what you want from the Matrix, which is understandable, then yeah. Uncharted trailer, real quick. It's coming out next month. I'll go see it. That's my opinion.
I will probably go and see it if my friend wants to go and see it, but otherwise I'm not that fussed.
You could come down to us and come see it with me and Tommy.
I could.
I mean, sorry, no, me and Tommy's corpse, because Tommy's dead and then we fired him.
Yep, definitely.
We'll fucking weekend at Bernie's him.
Yeah, maybe.
I will say they, in the latest trailer that they released, which was ages ago, but in the latest trailer they released, there was a brief glimpse at a set, like a lot of the set pieces they've shown so far, or like visuals they've shown so far, seem stolen straight from the games. There was a new set piece shown in the trailer, which is not from any of the games. I'm like, that's cool. That's cool that you've got original ideas as well. But at the same time, there was another thing that kind of pissed me off. And again, this is an origin story for Nathan Drake, so they might sort it out later. But it kind of feels like they put this, maybe they even like shot it because people complained after the first trailer, but they definitely put it in this trailer because people complained about it. We talked about it last time I had a trailer. Mark Wahlberg as Sully doesn't have the mustache. He doesn't look like Sully. He doesn't act like Sully. Why the fuck is he being cast as Sully? So in the latest trailer, at the very end, is a sequence basically taken straight from Uncharted 3, where a very young Nathan Drake meets Sully, and Sully has his mustache, and Nathan Drake makes a quip about his mustache. And I'm like, I mean, it's cool that you've done that, but also, what a massive fuck you that then he had a mustache for one scene and then they don't have it for the rest of the movie. Give him his fucking mustache. That's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Can't have your cake and eat it too, Sony. Or Mark Wahlberg, more realistic. It's probably him who's the protester. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's everything I have to say on Uncharted.
Cool.
You said you wanted to skip Cobra Kai, right? And we'll talk about that when
Yeah.
Tommy's here. The Witcher series, you want to get into that, or do you want to leave that for next week?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Leave The Witcher till next week because I'll probably.
We could always make it a separate show because you're now trying to play through the games. We can make it a special show where you just talk about The Witcher.
The Witcher hour.
But you know, I
mean,
want to talk about it with you because I've seen season 2 of the show now, so I've got opinions on that as well.
I mean, we could maybe do a roll for insight because we can talk about the show. I want to talk about the books and also a little bit about games once I've progressed. So maybe we could just do a separate episode.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would just take up like a whole podcast.
At the same time, we don't have that much planned for next week, so.
Yeah, no, sure.
Have
True.
you got the game working, by the way?
Yes, I downloaded GOG, and I somehow just had it for free on there, and I didn't need a patch, I didn't need any mods, it just worked straight away. So yeah.
Oh, it did work when I. Yeah, cool.
GOG. I don't like a lot of having to go onto other gaming platforms to install and play different games, but I make an exception for GOG because I think GOG, it's owned by CD Projekt Red. They obviously like do pretty good deals for CD Projekt Red in terms of what cut they get, but also it's got quite a lot of very good deals on it for cheap games.
It works really well for old games as well.
Yeah.
So
Lord of the Rings Amazon TV show had its title reveal, The Rings of Power. What did people think about that?
I mean, it's kind of the idea of it sort of being about, you know, the rings again. Like, I understand that's a big part of Lord of the Rings, but I still don't really know what to expect. But I kind of expected something entirely outside of, you know, the rings. And so now I'm thinking, oh, is it gonna like kind of show a little bit about the various factions that had the rings and maybe like their downfall and, you know, the politics behind that and everything. Like, I don't really know what to expect anymore.
Yeah. My prediction is it's basically going to be a loose, and it has to be a loose adaptation of this because it's basically a history book, a loose adaptation of the Silmarillion, and it literally showed the Silmarillion in the first like teaser image of the show. But then it surprised me. I was totally just expecting them to just come out and call it the Lord of the Rings Silmarillion or something, or just the Silmarillion. I kind of don't like the fact that it's got the Lord of the Rings in its name still, to be honest with you, because like I think the way that the games have done it, where they've branded it Middle Earth, is a much neater way of branding it. The Lord of the Rings is a singular part of Tolkien's works, but I'm moderately interested to see what it is. I do think it was a fucking bold choice, a cool choice, but a bold choice to do word for word basically the same intro speech that Peter Jackson's film started with, which is from the books, because I was like comparing it to is it Cate Blanchett who played Galadriel? It is, isn't it? Yeah. I was comparing it to her rendition of it and going, yeah, it didn't quite get. It was like not quite that. Like I admittedly, it's because I've grown up with the films, and that's probably a massive part of it. But Cate Blanchett's like delivery of those lines is fucking perfect. But then when I don't know the new actress's name, but she is playing Galadriel. When she got to the in the realm of Mordor, however she pronounced Mordor, I was like, okay, that was a fucking cool pronunciation of Mordor. I like that. So. But I think the thing that most excited me about it, in a weird way, is not the video I posted in Discord. There's another video, which is the behind the scenes of it. The entire title sequence was done practically.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, everything in that video is practical effects. It's like slow motion of like water being dropped on heated metal, and it's like real wood and stuff. And like that, I was like, that's pretty fucking cool. Hopefully, that indicates that a lot of the actual show is also being shot practically, like Lord of the Rings was. But I don't think that there's necessarily any indication that that is what they're saying. But it's still a cool title reveal, and I kind of hope that the intro sequence is either the same or very similar. So,
I mean, yeah, as I said, there's not really much to say other than we just have to wait and see. I feel like they haven't really given us much at all.
no, I think what they have given is like very tiny, but also only really going to be picked up on by like hardcore fans, like things like the Silmarillion being in the reveal image. Most people were like, oh, there's a big tree in the background, not knowing what that big tree is, and that's fine. Like, but I wonder whether that's intentional, that they're marketing for the hardcore fans first, or just coincidental, really.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it'll be easy to do the fucking dwarf stuff, because what happens to the fucking dwarves rings are fucking hilarious.
But
Do you know about that, Alex?
I don't.
They all get fucking eaten by dragons. That's literally it. And they get destroyed. The dragons. That's a simple way to mop up, isn't it?
what I want to know is, what smoking hot babe do you think they're going to have to play Shelob? If you're a Tolkien fan, that was a joke. Keep Shelob a creepy spider.
I still think it's a real shame that one of the dwarves didn't become a ring wraith, and you just had like all these like super tall like like dark riders, and there's just this like
And then final thing that I was particularly interested in talking about, just because I know a little bit about it, is the video you posted the other day, Alex, about Our Flag Means Death. So I haven't actually watched the teaser trailer for this yet, but I know that it's the story of, is it something Bonnet? Swede Bonnet? Is that his name?
I don't really know.
I think
I just watched the trailer and I was like, this looks pretty funny.
See, I haven't watched the trailer, but I'm assuming that is Swede Bonnet, because
what, the Gentleman Pirate?
The Gentleman Pirate, who is in Assassin's Creed Black Flag and such like. And I remember watching a video earlier this year, funnily enough, in preparation for our D&D campaign, which is a nautical piratey campaign, about Swede Bonnet, and I was like, this person's life needs to be a TV show or a movie. It's so fucking wild, like the life that he leads. So assuming that is about Swede Bonnet, I'm already sold. And I don't remember that actor's name, but I like that actor.
I read like the synopsis, and like I couldn't remember the name, but what you've just described is what it is. So
cool, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm all in. Particularly how Swede Bonnet went down is like one of the fucking craziest like pirate stories I've ever heard. I won't say it because it might be covered in the show, but it's like, yeah.
And it's made by Taika Waititi, so
didn't know that. I'm even more in. I was in based on Swede Bonnet and HBO Max. Also, HBO Max is coming to the UK soon, so like we can finally stop having to pirate HBO Max shows.
Find out other legitimate source of watching.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
He was just making a pun because it's a pirate film.
Exactly. Yes.
That's one of
I
those.
totally have Sky Atlantic. That's the one you get HBO on, right?
Yes.
Cool. I totally have Sky Atlantic and always have. I have actually, to be fair, I've only ever watched 3 HBO shows, and 2 of them I have actually accessed legitimately, which is True Detective and Chernobyl.
Yourself a hole here, Pete. Just
Game of Thrones I may have pirated in its entirety.
Hey, I mean,
but you know what? You fucked the landing, so you deserve it.
Yeah, slap on the wrist for that.
Look, until they stop shafting the UK, by giving us release dates that are so fucking far off in the future that everything gets spoiled anyway before we even get a chance to watch, I'm gonna fucking pirate it. Come at me.
Now that you've mentioned it, I'm 99% sure I pirated Mandalorian season 1 because that was when Disney Plus first came out and it wasn't going to be in the UK for like another 8 months. I was like, I'm not fucking waiting for the Mandalorian. Fuck off.
Yeah, I think I did too.
Yeah, and I think I literally said at the time, like, if you launched Disney Plus same day in the UK, I would have bought it day one. And guess what? When it came to the UK, I bought it day one. So, and haven't unsubscribed since. So Disney, please don't fucking sue us. But yeah.
I mean, this is literally it. Look, if you don't want to take our money, it's fine. I won't give it to you. I'll just, you know.
Exactly. And you know what? Han Solo would approve of what we did.
Literally, we are scoundrels.
Oh dear.
Anyone want to say anything particularly about Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga?
Well, seeing as it was Samo that wanted us to talk about it, I feel as if I should maybe at least say something. I mean, I haven't really been paying much attention to it. I mean, like, I've known that it's been coming out for a little while, but I always just felt like I swear they literally just keep remaking like collections of these games, and like I look at this and I just think, okay, how is this any different to any of the others?
But at the same time, I'm mildly excited for it just because I played Lego Star Wars the original and loved it with my brothers. So I'm kind of excited to get to re-enjoy that with the complete experience.
There is one thing.
Are you going to talk about the controversy?
I don't know about the controversy,
Okay.
but all I know is that I know that they've started actually getting voice actors in to play voices in the Lego Star Wars, but it used to be Mumbles. And apparently in that collections thing, you can just have an option to turn them back all into Mumbles.
Excellent. The Mumbles were like the funniest thing about those games.
It was pretty funny because it literally just gave you this weird like improv. It literally was just an improv synopsis of the films in a Lego game, and it was just great.
Like I did like the Mumbles, and like when they first started adding like voices into the Lego games, I was a little bit like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. But after playing, I think it was Lego Batman 3 Beyond Gotham, and they were like fully voice acted, I was like, you know what? They actually say some pretty fucking funny things.
I can't remember what the video was. There was a meme that was trending last year towards the end of it, which was like Alfred saying some really fucked up shit to Batman in that game, but it was because of like the context of what Batman had just done, and then Alfred called him up and said something. I can't remember the details of it, but it was like something like implying Batman might have been a murderer or something, and it was just really fucked up.
They like some of the stuff they say is actually really funny.
Maybe I'll try it with voices then, but the purist in me is against it.
I think that's good that they have offered the option to turn it back into Mumbles. I'll probably I'm gonna buy this and I'm gonna play it simply because
Higgledy Piggledy or Roll for Seduction playthrough with me and Alex coming soon, unless there's more than 2 players, in which case all of us soon.
I mean, yeah, I'm down.
I can't wait to just friendly kill everyone with blasters.
That's what I used to do all the time, is just kill my brother just to steal his coins.
Oh wait, I can't wait, because the entire playthrough I'm just going to keep killing everyone and play Han Solo, and I'll be like, hand shot first.
I'm like, honestly, I am like, the only reason that I'm gonna buy this game and play it is the promise of a really fucking good custom character creator with all of those different games and all of the different items that you hopefully will be able to choose from. That excites me.
I also think that it's kind of crazy that things like the ship combat, from the brief things I've seen, because I haven't paid a lot of attention to this game, but it genuinely looks better than a lot of video games in Star Wars we've had recently. Battlefront in particular, it looks more complete of an experience than a fucking Battlefront.
They should bring it out in VR mode, and you can play Lego Star Wars VR. Like,
I'd actually be down for a VR Lego game. That would actually be really fucking fun. Building stuff in VR in Lego. Like,
you actually have to build really intricate things, and it takes you hours just to like build something.
Imagine building a 10,000 piece Death Star in VR.
that you have to do. If not, you lose the game. Like,
Yeah, that's the final achievement.
it's not that you can play on easy mode, and I could just watch Pete do this as he builds something, like in VR.
And then your like meta account gets banned, and suddenly it's just lost forever.
But yeah, there was a bit of controversy around this, which has been unconfirmed. But a journalist came out and said that he did an expose on the working conditions of the studio making the Lego games, in particular this one, but also previous Lego games, and how overworked they are, how poor the management is, how there's like constant crunch and such like, and just how like it's a really shitty work culture. You know, the standard expose that gets done on game companies these days. And apparently they had to give warning to the studio and the publishers of when this article was going to go live. And guess when the article went live?
The same day as the trailer released?
Yep. I'm pretty sure it was like the same hour, if memory serves, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Oh.
So, as much as I'm like kind of excited for the game, that's a real scum move. That's true that the trailer dropped just to try and take attention away from an article about how shitty the work conditions were. But what are you gonna do? That's scumbag capitalism for you. Capitalism in space.
It's getting to the point now where you just can't really do anything about like crunch
Scumbag
and
capitalism.
everything, because like it just seems like every big company is doing it, and like no matter how many times people like expose them and try and make changes, there's always another company that's doing it.
Yeah, but I guess if you keep on exposing it and there keeps on being pressure, like studios that have been exposed, quite a lot of them have said at the very least that they're trying to be better. Whether they will or not is another thing entirely, but yeah.
It
Possibly.
comes down to if people keep playing the games, because I know that we've talked about stuff like this in the past, and I've said, I feel so conflicted because on the one hand I don't want to contribute to this toxic work environment, but at the same time I don't want to not get the game because I feel like they've just gone through, like, all of the decent people working on the game has gone through so much shit.
And at the end of the day, like, if you've got shitty managers, that doesn't mean that everyone else who works there is shitty. It might mean that they got shit on, but like, lots of people work on video games, and if you don't support a company because the company's shitty, you also don't support those employees, arguably. And you could go, oh, they should find a better job, and they could find a better job. Yeah, maybe, but like, also, if no one buys that video game, then that studio doesn't get to make another video game, and it closes. So
it's
a tough one.
Go to Blizzard Activision.
Yeah.
Well, Blizzard Activision's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. That's just a...
Yeah. I just want to quickly see what you guys think about Microsoft buying Activision and Blizzard.
It's so fucking weird, some people's reaction to this, man. Like, I've seen so many people being like, this is the studio that Microsoft should buy next. Really? That's your reaction to a massive acquisition like this? Is please, daddy, Microsoft buy something else? Like, do you want a monopoly? Like I'm fine with like Microsoft buying studios, but as long as it is, the ability for there to be competition in the industry. But I would never be like, oh, Microsoft, please buy Nintendo next, which is what I've seen some people be like, or please buy Sega next, or whatever. It's just weird. That's weird to me.
I mean, like, it was my colleague that told me at work about the acquisition, and without even thinking, my first response was, that is so fucking weird that they've decided to buy this company that has just
destroyed their
in the
reputation.
last few months, had their reputation destroyed, had people just leaving their games in droves, and just is known for being this completely sexist and horrible fucking place to work for.
It's also
they want this company.
It's the best time to take it. Like,
Well, from a financial point of view, yeah, if the stocks have been
Yeah.
plummeting because of that, then yeah, it was probably a pretty easy acquisition. But what is weird as well is Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, and I don't, he's not the head of Microsoft, he's the head of Microsoft Games, which is Xbox, has been very vocal about his criticism of Activision Blizzard for a very long time now, like several months, and like literally like the week before they bought it, he was still criticizing them, and then they bought it. But
yeah, that's
the rumor is that things like the CEO, who I can't remember his name, but he's going to be
Bobby
ousted.
Kotick.
Yeah, he's supposedly going to be ousted once the acquisition is done. In the official announcement, they said that he would be remaining as CEO, but then business analysts went, yeah, that's normally the case when there's a transfer period, and then once the transfer period is complete, that's when they get rid of the CEO. And that does mean that he will get a very nice big payout for being ousted. But you know, so you could view it as Microsoft trying to go, okay, here's a company that we can buy on the cheap, but hopefully if we start to turn things around, people will come back to, because the names are well known, and we can actually like turn the company
we know
around.
that they can make money if they're led properly.
And there's good talent there, so like
Yeah.
I can kind of see why they went for it, but it's a very weird choice. Like for me, when they bought Bethesda, to me that was like, oh, okay, you are buying the big guns to compete with Sony. And I kind of went, okay, I can see the logic behind that. With this one, it's a bit more, it doesn't feel like this is as much of a competitive strike against Sony and more of a,
Just financial, like, we can take this and make money.
yeah, exactly. Like worst case scenario, they basically got, like from a financial point of view, worst case scenario, they gut Activision and Blizzard, and then just keep the few franchises that are popular and just make them themselves in house, because they now own all the IPs. Like if Microsoft wanted to give the Overwatch IP to Bethesda, for instance, they could. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is also my theory. You're gonna have to check Higgledy Piggledy Podcast Discord for it, but that's my theory.
Did you make a notification bloop go off during the podcast?
Yeah, I did, because this is my theory.
Sicken me.
You got to flash it up on the screen in the video now, Pete.
This is my theory.
I might just make that the thumbnail. That or the other image that Calum sent me, which is probably not okay to put as a thumbnail for YouTube. Did you send that one to Alex by any chance?
I think I did. If it's the one you're talking about.
The Arcane one, Alex? Did you get sent that one?
Oh, I might not actually.
No, I don't think so. No.
When did I send the Arcane one?
Like 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah, I did. I'll send that to Alex now.
But yeah, no, it's an interesting move, but I don't get why so many people are like super on board with it at the same time, because it is a case of like, the more that Microsoft and Sony do this, and it does feel like Microsoft is more aggressively doing this than Sony, but then Sony has been in that kind of position of owning these studios for a long time, but like it does kind of feel like we're getting closer and closer to a monopoly, and yeah, I don't know, it's maybe a bad thing. It's the ultimate thing. If it just becomes for people, and like people have gone like, oh well, Nintendo is still like, you know, Nintendo's never going to sell. Fine, I don't play any Nintendo games because I don't own any Nintendo consoles, so Nintendo is irrelevant to a conversation for me as a gamer. I'm not saying that they're irrelevant in the industry, but for me personally, never going to touch one of their products again because I don't own the console. So to me, when you're talking about PC games, I'm like, currently Bethesda, Sony, and then a couple of other companies, and it is actually quite scary when, you know, I've seen people go like, oh, Bethesda should buy Ubisoft next. Ooh, that's another big one that, you know, if it goes to Microsoft, then there's even less. Did I say Bethesda buy Ubisoft?
Yeah,
I meant Microsoft. But you get what I mean. It's like, yeah, the more that it's just two big companies and then the indie companies, that's a bad thing for the industry. So
you see, I'm curious. What I think is going to happen is there is going to be a monopoly, but I'm wondering who's going to come out on top, Disney or Microsoft?
Disney haven't even
Because
what? Disney aren't what?
Disney have obviously acquired a lot of other brands, right?
A lot of other brands, but no companies yet.
Well, like Marvel and stuff.
No, but like I mean in terms of gaming. Oh, do you just mean in
No.
general?
Just in general, however, look at it this way, right? I was talking to some friends about it the other day, and someone mentioned EA, and I was like, Microsoft will probably go after EA next because they've gone pretty downhill as well. They'll probably be an easy acquisition at some point. So Microsoft will probably buy EA. Then Disney will be loaning out the rights to Star Wars and Marvel games to not Marvel games, sorry. They'll be loaning out the Star Wars rights to EA, which is owned by Microsoft. So Disney will fatten Microsoft up to then buy Microsoft, and then they'll have all their rights.
Maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I genuinely wonder out of the two, because I'm genuinely struggling to think of big studios that aren't owned by Sony or Microsoft right now, and the only two that are like really springing to mind are Ubisoft and EA, which are both pretty fucking massive these days. I guess Epic with Fortnite, like as much as it's not many games that Epic makes in terms of money making, they are huge, and obviously they make the Unreal Engine, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's
They just make most of their money by bullying people into using their putting games on their platform. That's it. That and Fortnite.
See, I think
I will just say, look, real quick, they don't really bully people into putting games on their platforms. They bully consumers into using their platform, but they very much give a very sweet deal to developers for putting it on the platform, which is
No, they do. And then it's like, well, if you
more money.
refuse, you can never put it on any of our platforms ever again.
Do they actually do that?
I'm pretty sure they do that.
I've never heard of that, but holy fuck, if they do that, that's fucked. But
yeah, it's like literally like, oh yeah, give us like an exclusive contract for this. We'll pay you this much money, and then it's like, oh, if you don't though, we might not be able to put it on our like platform.
Oh, okay. Well, if they do that, that's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
But...
I think with Epic, I think because they're still a like relatively newcomer to like the whole like big platform game.
They are and they aren't. They've been the makers of the Unreal Engine, which Unreal 3 was probably the biggest engine in gaming for a long time.
I mean, in terms of actually having their own platform to distribute games.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I don't think they will sell to anyone, at least not yet, not in a decent amount of years. EA, as I said, they've been going downhill for a while now. Like, there's not really been many games that I would say have done like outstandingly well. And I feel like because of that, if someone like Microsoft did come at them with like a pretty nice offer, I think they would sell. Ubisoft, I think there's a possibility they might. However, they have been doing fairly well recently, like with like, Assassin's Creed and everything. I feel like that's picked up a bit of pace again. And I feel like maybe a few years ago when like it was just kind of a dead company where nobody really was liking the games, and like they were all just buggy messes and everything, I think they would have sold then. Now I think they would probably hold off.
It's interesting though. I don't know the exact data, and I can't be bothered to Google it, so I'm a great podcaster just spewing nonsense into the internet. But I'm pretty sure Ubisoft's, and in terms of like the big companies, Ubisoft's stock is like one of the lowest. Like it's like 8th or something in the gaming industry. I don't know where EA sits on that. I don't know if it's higher or if it's even in the top 10. But yeah, I don't think Ubisoft was like, it surprised me how low Ubisoft's stock was when I saw it. And that's including companies like Nintendo, which is like massively up there, which again, when I think about what affects me as a gamer, Nintendo is not part of the equation, so I don't usually care about news to do them, but Nintendo clearly do very well for themselves. The thing with EA is there are a lot of games I'm sure EA have published that I don't care about and haven't noticed, but Battlefront 2 they've kind of turned around. So like,
and then completely abandoned.
have they completely abandoned it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, there is not a single person working on that game anymore.
I wonder whether that was timed with them no longer having the exclusivity rights. Star Wars Squadrons I don't think sold particularly well, but it also wasn't that big of a budget game and it wasn't marketed that much, but like critically really well received from the people who liked it. Fallen Order really well received, and as I understand, pretty big success. And then the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, I understand too, have done really well commercially and critically, particularly when you compare it to other remasters recently. So I think it's one of those cases where like they're starting to gain a bit of the goodwill back and a bit of the money back. What I think is interesting for EA moving forward is what they do next, because they don't have the Star Wars exclusivity rights anymore. I don't know what other studios are doing in EA because I don't care about most EA games, but I did read BioWare's looking forward letter that they released like at the end of last year or the beginning of this year, and I can't remember the name of the new studio head, but he was pretty frank about the fact that BioWare had pretty heavily damaged their reputation amongst fans, and that his priority was to release a Mass Effect game and a Dragon Age game that would bring all of the fans back and like bring back that support. So that kind of mentality of that's what we need to do is prove that we're worthy of people loving our franchises again. I'm like, cool, do that, because like I personally didn't hate Andromeda, although it's a fucking mess of a game. I didn't hate it, but if you nail Mass Effect 5, like that could be so huge for EA. So
I think it's difficult to say with EA because, yeah, sure, like Fallen Order and the Legendary Edition of Mass Effect did well. Okay, 2 games. That's a spike in money. However, you then look at their most recent release, Battlefield 2042. Fucking awful, right? And so, yeah, you get a little bit of goodwill back with like those other games, but then if they're then they make the stupid decision to completely abandon Battlefront 2, which had a rise in a player base and people want more of, to then shift to Battlefield 2042, which is complete dog shit. And like, I feel like they're not being consistent enough to actually get anywhere. I think realistically, the only way that companies surviving between those good games is because they're still getting money from the same idiots that buy FIFA every year. And if you like FIFA, that's up to you, but you can't say that you're not being a bit of an idiot by buying the same exact game every single fucking year. I mean, like, I was one of you, you know, like for a while I played FIFA and, you know, all the other dog shit games that, you know, were just the same every single year. But I learned.
Okay, so I've looked it up just out of curiosity. Largest video game companies by market cap. I don't know what market cap actually means in stocks because I don't pay attention to stocks. I assume it means, however, like the maximum that stocks are selling for or something. Microsoft, number 1. It's apparently been in a downward spike over the last 30 days, but I don't know what that is in the scale of the year. But that might be that they've just like invested a lot of people like, ooh, sell now sort of thing. I don't know. Again, I don't know stocks. I'm not giving any advice to anyone. This is just out of curiosity. Do not take this as advice. Blah, blah, blah. Just want to cover that. Tencent, which owns Epic, is number 2. Sony is number 3. So Microsoft, Epic, Sony.
Tencent owns a lot.
Yes, Tencent owns a lot.
But it's not just Epic. They own lots.
Yeah, I don't know whether this is
fingers in different pies.
I don't know whether when it's saying Tencent, it's just saying Tencent's market share in gaming or Tencent overall. Because if it's overall, then I'd be fair enough.
And they own Riot as well.
They own part of it, yeah.
Yeah. Sia, which I've never heard of. Technically, it's spelt C, but it's Singapore. So I don't know. I have no idea. I've never heard of it. But for some reason, I went with Sia and then went, it's spelled C. Why am I changing how it's pronounced? NetEase, which I've never heard of. It's a Chinese company. Activision Blizzard is number 6, but that's had a massive spike in the last 30 days. Wonder why. Nintendo is number 7. Number 8. Does anyone want to guess what number 8 is? I guarantee you won't get it. But actually, it's not surprising to me at all now that I'm seeing it. But
Don't know. Maybe Larian.
nope.
I wish.
I don't have a clue.
It's Roblox.
Yeah, fair enough.
Which, side note, I recommend that you watch. There are 2 videos, can't remember who they're by, but you should search for them on YouTube, about the toxic element of Roblox and why it's bad for children. They're really interesting videos, but it basically Roblox is manipulating children.
Also, go buy Larian Games because they're a 6 studio.
They are an amazing studio. And currently still privately owned, as far as I'm aware. They don't have any big corporate overlords, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Number 9 is Electronic Arts, which has had a massive spike in. I wonder whether that massive spike in the last 30 days, and literally it's the same time that Activision Blizzard's shot up, was people being like, if we buy now, that means that Microsoft are going to buy it soon, and then we'll get big bucks. I guarantee that's what's going on. Number 10 is Unity. Which, a big engine maker. I don't know many AAA games that make games on Unity, but a lot of mobile games are made on Unity, and mobile games are massive. And Unity is a great platform anyways, but Aristocrat, which I've never heard of. Take-Two Interactive is number 12. And do you want to guess where Ubisoft is? Because the next several companies I've never heard of.
Probably very down the list.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess where it is in comparison to GameStop? After GameStop's big thing last year, or was it the year before? Time has no meaning.
I feel like it's like 20 odd after GameStop.
It's not 20 odd after GameStop, no.
Oh,
It's right next to it.
Yeah, GameStop is number 20. Ubisoft is number 21. Although again, Ubisoft massive spike in its shares being bought. So again, I guarantee these like big companies are the ones where people are like, these are the ones Microsoft's going to buy next, or maybe Sony's going to respond and buy
Which
next.
is
So
really
stupid.
silly in
Yeah.
perspective when you think that the only reason Blizzard Activision were bought is because the amount of like just the biggest shit show that's ever happened like over the years with what's been going on with them. Like it wasn't that the ship was sinking, that ship was like halfway underwater sort of thing with just everything that happened.
It was in
Yeah,
Davy Jones's life.
All you could see was the crow's nest sort of thing. Like it wasn't like EA and whatever that are taking on water or anything like that. It was yeah.
It had been ripped to pieces by the Kraken.
Like the only thing they had going for them before the acquisition was World of Warcraft, but even then, like the amount of people that have left that game because of everything that they just haven't done with it and everything, it's just yeah.
Well, they got
Like-
COD.
Let's just put it this way. Activision Blizzard was being carried by the weird crab creatures in Davy Jones' Locker and Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
Yeah. Like that's the only reason that the acquisition went on. Like, don't expect in the next year to see like EA be bought or anything like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if next year, sometime in 2023, is when Microsoft makes its next big purchase. Just because I think when they bought Bethesda was last year, if memory serves. But I don't expect it to be within the next couple of months or anything. It will be, if any time, it will probably be next year. And again, this is purely speculative, but
It would become Microsoft's yearly tradition to acquire it.
it's their Christmas present to themselves as they acquire another
Yeah.
big company. Oh, little Christmas treat for me. Square Enix is number 23. Capcom is number 24. CD Projekt Red is number 25. And then you got Razer at number 26. And I don't recognize any of the other companies there except for Corsair, which is number 29.
Wow.
Corsair currently selling stock for $19.13. If you want Corsair, you can sponsor me. I'll accept stock.
All right, Pete, calm down.
See, like a few, well, probably about a year ago now, I also would have wanted a sponsorship because a lot of my stuff was Corsair, but unfortunately, I betrayed all of my principles and morals and switched to Razer.
Wow.
Yeah, I still resent myself for that, but they're actually pretty good. I don't know why I hated them for so long.
I don't dislike Razer, I just think they're overpriced. But Corsair's not much cheaper these days, to be fair. But
Mm.
yeah. Also, interestingly, looking at the stock of Blizzard, it's been on like a pretty steady increase since like this time in 2022, in 2020, sorry. Except for a massive dip in December of last year, which was
Wonder why.
probably just around when Microsoft went, "Ooh, hello Blizzard, hello Activision." But yeah, so they've actually like the fuck ups haven't massively affected the stock. It doesn't look like.
Well, like
Saying
COD,
that, actually, no, like the real fuck ups were probably in the summer of last year. The stock went from 76.26 billion in June of last year to by December of last year it was down at 47.22, so nearly halved.
I mean, I can explain away why it went up because they had a lot of really like decent releases. I mean, over the last few years they've released what like three. Is it three? There was Modern Warfare, there was Cold War, there was Vanguard. So they released three COD games. They
And
also
like Modern Warfare's like battle royale mode has been like super successful.
exactly. So that was a really big hit for them. Also, they brought out WoW Classic, which a lot of people flocked back to and bought. And then they also released the Burning Crusade, and also they released World of Warcraft Shadowlands, which a lot of people came back to. So they brought out all these like massive things, and then it slowly started to dwindle again anyway because people kind of like got their fill, and then they were like, actually, it's probably not as good as I thought it was. And then they took that massive hit, and it just became the shit show that we all know and not really love. But yeah, and also there's a promise of a decent Diablo coming out, so
Yeah. Final little fun game that I want to play with stocks before we move on, or potentially wrap up really because we've been going for 2.5 hours.
we still got to do our what we consumed in the week.
Fucking
segment.
hell! Really? We doing that this week?
We do it every week, man. We've
Okay,
got to
fine.
continue.
Just very quickly then. So the stock currently is at 62.36 billion, which I assume is for a single share. I don't know how this works. Again, not a stock expert. So 62.36 billion. Do you want to guess what it was exactly 20 years ago? Just to see how much the gaming industry has changed.
Probably worth like 50 grand.
It's more than that.
It's a couple of million.
It's more than that.
No, well, there you go.
20 million.
1.41 billion.
Oh.
But still, to go from that to in 20 years it being at 60 billion, or if you go back before massive changes, its height was at 75 billion-ish.
I thought you said million to begin with.
No, billion.
Otherwise,
Inflation's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, it wouldn't have gone so fucking low. Jesus.
Its lifetime peak has been 80 billion, which was about this time last year. Yeah. Anyways, fine. Real quick, because we've been going for 2.5 hours. What content we in the week
have consumed?
Calum,
I
you go
really
first.
done much.
Me? Oh, okay. Fuck, what have I been watching recently?
Do you know what I've been consuming this week? A nice, fresh, cold can of Dr. Pepper.
Oh my god.
Please sponsor us, Dr. Pepper. You're the best.
Jesus Christ. You fucking chills.
I know I've been drinking a Pepsi, but like, just ignore that. Like, I'm all
We'll
for
fix
you,
it in
Dr. Pepper.
post.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I've been watching Stay Close on Netflix. You watched that? Very good. I would recommend. Very good. It's like a nice little crime drama thriller. It's a very good. I'm only like 4 episodes in, but it's a nice one to watch as like a slow burn. That's really good. So I've been watching that.
Oh.
Are you two not going to say what you've been watching?
I was waiting for you to continue. Like, that's all you
Yeah.
consumed in the week?
It was a
Well-
really like it cut off.
Well, yeah, I just assumed that we'd be, like go around and just say one thing that we've done, not like everything off the week.
I mean, yeah, we can do. I mean, we've gone on for
Like, surely
Quite a
that'd make it
while,
a little bit simpler. Like,
all right.
Do you want to go next, Alex?
Sure. I did think of something I have been watching, which is called Nathan for You. I I genuinely have no idea who told me about this show. I thought
Oh
it
yeah,
was
you
Pete, but
recommended it to
wasn't.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, like I thought it was Pete, but it wasn't. So now I have no idea who it was. But it's basically this comedian who plays like this exaggerated version of himself who's got a like business degree, and it's kind of like a Eric Andre-esque type show where he goes round to these businesses and like it's under the pretense that he's gonna help them with like all these good business ideas, but like they're all just terrible. And so like I don't really want to spoil too much in case you missed it, but there was one line the other day that had me just absolutely busting a gut. And he basically went to this haunted house who was trying to get more business in. And he was like, okay, so what we need to do is make your house so scary that someone sues you. And for just being too scary, you know? And like the owner's like, my house, like it's already scary enough, like that's not the problem. He's like, no, it isn't. We need to make it scarier. And like they're having this back and forth, and it just goes into insults. And Nathan is like, no, this is like the least scary house like I've ever seen. Like this is where pussies go to relax. And it just had me absolutely rolling. It's such a good show. I would highly recommend it, especially if you like anything Eric Andre, because it's very reminiscent of that.
But by you mentioning Eric Andre, you reminded me of a discovery I made recently. You know, I recommended the film ages ago, Bad Trip, which is an Eric Andre film. For those who don't know, it's a hidden camera film featuring Eric Andre, and I forget who the other comedian who is in it is. I'm afraid because it's not Hannibal Buress, who is his normal partner. But it's a narrative film. There is a structure to it with them going on a road trip to New York. But there's just loads of hidden camera gags. So like they go to a zoo and they do fucked up shit in the zoo, but there are hidden cameras and people are really reacting to it and that sort of thing. But I recently discovered, because I was listening to the Mandalorian soundtrack, that Ludwig Göransson, the composer for the Mandalorian, was also the composer for Bad Trip.
nice.
And I was just like, okay, sure. But yeah, what have I been consuming in the week? Mostly Pokelawls GTA RP content as Bogdan, which I recommended to Alex. It's fucking hilarious. I've gotten really into GTA RP videos since the last podcast over a month ago. I really enjoy pretty much all the content I've seen. There's a streamer called Burn who like role plays characters like Johnny Silverhand, but he like actually glitches out and stuff. But Bogdan's just like a really great like narrative character who is currently going through his BMX story arc where he's trying to become the ultimate BMXer. I don't want to say too much because Alex is also watching the series and I don't want to spoil anything for him, but it's fucking great. Other than that, I've been consuming antibiotic ear spray for my ear infection that I've had for the last week, which is nearly done. I'm back on 90% form. And I started Star Wars Resistance yesterday. No comment so far. I'm not enjoying it particularly, but I'm hoping it gets better because I'm kind of like comparing it to Rebels, where I didn't love Rebels at first and then ended up loving it. So I'm like hoping that Resistance goes on the same arc, but Resistance feels very, very kid orientated currently. So, but yeah.
I guess that's that out of the way. So, I've mentioned a few things over the last few podcasts, like the Piston Cup, deciding whether or not we're going to play through the Borderlands series. Tom and I still need to get around to doing that.
Does Calum even know about this wager? Because he's involved in this wager, but I don't know if he knows about
How
this.
am I involved? This
You didn't show up to the podcast. We made a wager on your behalf.
You've been selling my soul without me knowing what's going
A,
on.
a little
here.
bit, yeah. Alex, you want to explain?
So Tom gifted me Cars, the game on Steam.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
nice.
he also gifted me all of the Cars series.
Okay. Yeah.
And like I started to play it and we just thought it was hilarious. And so we decided, because Pete and I would like to play through the Borderlands series on the channel, and Tom isn't a massive fan of it. So
Okay, yeah.
we
And I brought up multiple
suggested-
times the betrayal he did when we were all trying to play through it together, and then he fucked off to go play WoW and just
Okay,
killed the
okay.
entire playthrough.
So we came to an agreement that Tom and I would race in the Cars Piston Cup.
Okay.
And depending on the outcome, if I won, we would play through the Borderlands series.
Okay.
And
As a
if
channel.
I lost,
Yeah.
can't remember what.
I don't think there was any losing.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
it's pretty.
it's probably in the podcast, but I personally, as the judge and arbitrator of this bet, don't remember there being any stipulation of what happens if you lose. Therefore, I assume he
Yeah.
pays you like £50 if you lose as an apology.
Cool.
I don't know about all that.
So in other words, if Alex wins, I get to play through the Borderlands series for the first time
With the
and
boys.
with the boys, and if not, I guess Alex is £50 richer.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So,
And
yeah, it's-
commenters, you better hold Tommy to that. If he wins, he owes Alex 50 quid.
I mean, I'm
Fair
fine
enough.
with this.
Tommy isn't here to argue his case, so
Yeah, it's settled. So yeah, that will hopefully be going ahead soon. The D&D campaign, as with the break and the podcast, I haven't really been thinking about it. We haven't really talked about it. However, over the last few days, we have picked up a little bit, and I'm going to start working on it. So hopefully that will be coming soon. We also would like to do some more like co-op games and stuff. I mean, like we mentioned, earlier in the podcast, that, I don't know how serious you were about it, Pete, but I'm definitely up for playing Lego Star Wars when it comes out.
I'm up for it. Fuck it.
Um,
Don't actually know if it's
yeah.
coming out on PC, but
It is.
I mean,
Okay.
it probably.
you can pre-order it on Steam now.
cool.
So yeah, we're just gonna try and get some content out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Also, podcast audio should be better because Tommy's getting his own place. So he doesn't live here anymore, anyways. But he's getting his own place soon. So yeah, there will no longer be an echo when he's talking and picking up on my microphone because he fucking shouts.
Gotta love that boy.
You want to plug your Twitch channel, Pete, for the upcoming campaign?
Sure. If you don't know, I stream occasionally on Twitch when I don't have an ear infection. And it's twitch.tv/pbmarsh. I stream a variety of things. Currently playing through the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. But pretty soon there will be a Star Wars campaign stream there. We decided to keep it separate from this channel just because I've got a little bit of a budgeting channel myself and would like to kind of expand on that and keep content for that as well. But it will be featuring these two boys plus Tommy plus an additional boyo called Samo.
Wait, I'm gonna be in it?
Yeah.
That's Pog.
Samo, you will also see in my campaign. So
Yeah, so there's more content coming, but I don't plan to like fucking plaster this channel with promotion for my channel. You can find them separately or stuff, or not. I don't fucking know. Watch whatever you like on YouTube, as long as it's not, those weird animated videos with Elsa and Spider-Man and stuff.
They're my
Yeah, I mean,
favourite, man.
the man shills Dr. Pepper, but he won't shill his own channel. He has standards.
Exactly. Anyways, as I say goodbye to you all, I'm just going to start browsing on my OnePlus 6T. It's about 4 years old, so if,
Jesus
if
Christ.
anyone wanted to offer me a new
Alright,
phone,
I'm going.
thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the
Higgledy Podcast.
the Higgledy Piggledy Podcast, as I and Chester correctly said together. That right there was an audio sample played on a Go XLR sampler. And
I'm going.
I just realized what we should do is like the end card. We should just have Calum's door playing. Where is it? Come on, let's hear the door, Calum.